Greetings, everyone. My name is Cynthia Yeh. I am the Program Director for Train the Trainers 2023. It's my pleasure to introduce today's meeting. First, some technicalities. This meeting will be recorded. We're going to put it on YouTube. If you do not feel comfortable with your face being shared, then please turn off your video. But just in general, this is going to be a recorded and shared meeting so that the greater public can learn from Toastmasters. Please mute yourself when you are not speaking. We do have two tech hosts today. One of them will be dedicated for the audience members. They will help mute you if you are unable to mute yourself. And then we have one dedicated for our presenters because we have 5 presenters today. So we have someone to help them with their technical aspects of this morning's meeting. Right now, I'm going to introduce our dignitaries, then our functionaries, and then I will introduce our presenters. So jump right into the meeting. So first off, our dignitaries, we have our trio present. And then our trio, we have Sally Philbin, Ed Cullen, and Linda Patton. And Ed Cullen, if you are here, please unmute yourself, or Kat, our tech host, if you could unmute Ed to say something.
I'm here to welcome everyone. Sally Philbin is doing a fabulous job in getting trainings out to people in District 57, many of them priceless and free. This From Speaker to Trainer training is terrific, and every moment is a moment you will cherish. Back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you very much, Ed. Next up, I'd like to introduce our functionaries. As a Toastmaster meeting, we need our functionaries. And also request, if you are presenting or have a functionary role, please add that at the end of your name, just to make it easier for everyone else coordinating. I'm going to first introduce our tech hosts. If you could just shout out or raise your hand with the emoji so that people can find you and know what to do. So I'll call Daniel first, our presenter's tech host.
Hi folks, I'm the presenter tech host for today's Train the Trainer. I don't know what else to say. Have fun.
All right, be on the lookout for him. Kat King, you're the audience's tech host. Could you please make yourself known?
Hi everyone. I will be helping the audience with their mute functions, I think. Anyway, hope you have a good time today.
Mute or any other technical issues that the audience has or questions, please direct them to Kat. That way Daniel can focus on helping our presenters. And then our timer, important timer.
Hello, I'm your timer, Jeff Young, also the Division A Director. Watch out for my cards. That's all.
Okay, those are your essential functionaries for today's meeting. Okay, now I can introduce our presenters. I'm going to provide a brief introduction and then introduce our first presenter. Brendan James Murphy, he'll be providing the introduction to today's session. Then we have Dr. Jeff Levine. He will be teaching us about gap analysis and adult learning theory. After that, we have Janet Peng. She's going to share about training methods. Then we have Talha Hamid. He'll be jumping on in a moment. He's in a completely different time zone on the other side of the planet, but he'll be teaching us more about training methods and case studies. And then Levine will be guiding us through portions of facilitation techniques and dealing with difficult audience members. So let's get this started with Brendan.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and welcome one and all. Everybody here is an STM today. You've heard of DTM, I know, but an STM is something special. That means Super Toastmaster. Just by choosing this amazing workshop that Toastmasters has put together, that choice indicates what a STM you are. And at the end of the day, I think your powers are going to grow. when I took this session for myself many years ago, I didn't realize what an impact it would have on me. Of course, I got the opportunity to train hundreds of Toastmasters, and I loved it. But I also trained some people in volunteer organization outside of Toastmasters, and I also got the opportunity to train at work. And when I was invited to do that, they knew I was a Toastmaster. They didn't know what to expect. And I didn't either. I said, when do you want me to help out? Which day? You know, give me a date. And they laughed. They said, it will be 3 months of training several times a week. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I'll do that. 18 months later, I'm still doing that. And I've trained 400 of my fellow employees, and I love it. I feel super when I execute that training module that you are going to learn today. Of all the written materials that Toastmasters have put out, this module I think is by far the best. So prepare to become supersized as an STM. Now, I want to introduce the module here and just acknowledge the fact that well-trained people make a huge difference in the success of any organization, whether it's a volunteer community organization or a business. Everybody knows this one, so we want to have well-trained people. To do that, we need people who can train. And that's what this session obviously is all about, enabling and empowering you to train. Now, trainers aren't speakers, they're not school teachers in the sense that we think of them. Trainers are facilitators. And their job is to speak very little, but to get the trainees involved and learning and practicing so that they are enabled and empowered to go out and make a difference in the organization. During today's session, we're going to give you the materials you need to plan and execute an amazing training session each and every time. Hope you're ready, because we're going to get started. And when you get started with your training, there's 2 things you need to do: build rapport and do an icebreaker. So when it comes to building rapport, the first thing you need to do is smile and show enthusiasm, like, I am very excited to present Train the Trainer to you today. No, you got to go opposite about that. Are you enthusiastic about the material? One thing I'll say that I was worried about when I started training and I had all these sessions, it was the same material every single time, right? So I couldn't really be enthusiastic about the material, but that didn't matter. I became enthusiastic because the trainees were there, and it was my job to help them grow. So again, if you're doing the same stuff again and again, doesn't matter. You got an audience, and that's great. So having trainees, I believe, will give you the enthusiasm that you need. Establish credibility. I tried to do that discussing what my experience is with training. And when you do that, maybe you have somebody introduce you, or you hand out a little resume that shows what your credibility is all about, but why are you here and why are you empowered with this facilitation role? Very important indeed. And then you maintain eye contact. We see this when we try to practice public speaking in Toastmasters, but we also see this when we try to do it on Zoom. You know, I have my notes, I'm checking my slides, but my primary goal is to look at the camera so I can have eye contact with you. And when you're in person, it's easier to see that, to make that exchange. All I got right now is a green dot, but try to make that eye contact when you're zooming as well. Then a little bit of levity goes a long way. And levity is not just essentially being a comedian or anything like that. It is having some fun, putting some lightness into the training event. Now, Dr. Ralph Smedley said, we learn best in times of enjoyment. And one way to make people feel like they're enjoying the experience is that levity, maybe a little bit of humor. You don't have to have planned out jokes. You just have to say, let's go through this with a spirit of fun, especially when you're doing things like icebreakers or talking to people during the breaks. And then that's what's called walking around. How do you walk around on the Zoom camera? Good luck to you. But even in Zoom, there's a way to make contact, whether it's through chat, dropping in on the small group sessions as they're in play. And of course, talking to people at breaks and making that contact by quote unquote, walking around through there. Then avoid distracting behaviors, chewing gum, looking at things, going, oh my goodness, I got to go open up the door. All those types of things, eliminate as much as possible. They're still going to pop up, but you don't want something to distract and break the connection that you're building as a facilitator. Again, you're not a speaker in this situation, you're a facilitator, and you want to have people still focus on what you're doing and what you're leading them through. So in addition to building rapport, it's very important to have icebreakers. Yeah, it seems silly, but icebreakers are so vital. And when I do my training at work, I try to build some rapport like we just experienced, and then I definitely have an icebreaker. I have trainees classes of 8 to 15 people. So, it's possible to do a more extensive icebreaker. Today, we got a big group, so our icebreaker is going to be a little more focused on the small groups getting together. But having people speak is very important, and they have to speak within the first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes is vital. Everybody gets a chance to speak. If they don't speak within the first 20 minutes, they're going to lay back and say, oh, this is just like school. I'll take notes, and when it's over, I'm done. You don't want that. You want them fully engaged. And to get them engaged, got to start within that time frame of 20 minutes. So make sure that it happens. And when you plan out your training session, you're going to build rapport, and right after that, you're going to get to an icebreaker within those vital 20 minutes. Brevity, icebreakers, very important, but balance them in with your total amount of time. If you have 1 hour training, the icebreaker's got to be 5 minutes, maybe pushing it to the Toastmasters famous 5 to 7. But brief as possible, but still getting the effect of allowing people to become engaged. Very important. And related to the workshop topic, this is important because otherwise it's just fun for some fun's sake. Nothing wrong with that, but your time as a trainer is precious. So if you can get stuff that is related to the topic and helps associate their experience with that training, then you get that double point bonus that we're all trying to achieve in terms of efficiency of time. And try to make them as creative as possible. Have some fun with that. Again, you're trying to add a little bit of levity. Can you have a good time with that by making it just a little more creative? This is very important. Involve all participants in a non-threatening way. I learned this several years ago at my club at AT&T. The vice president of education was put in charge of his department's meeting, and people were coming all across the nation, and there'd be 200 people in a room. And he asked if I could do some stuff to warm up the audience. And I thought, oh, icebreakers, woohoo, this is going to be great. So I'd use some stuff I'd use with teenagers at my church, and I thought these were fun icebreakers. I actually walked him through everything I was planning to do, and he was super enthusiastic about it. And I had this activity where people kind of play Rochambeau, and the loser of that had to do certain things for the winner of those things. I thought, oh, that's fun ways, and people get to know each other just a little bit better, then they move on. Well, one of the rewards was for the loser to give a shoulder massage to the winner. I love massages, so I thought this was the perfect way to break the ice. It became a threatening environment for certain people, and they were not used to some of our crazy California ways. It was so wrong that our vice president of education never put me on the schedule again. And then a couple months later, he just quit Toastmasters altogether. He never said anything to me after that. It was a total disaster because it wasn't inviting to all participants. And it was that kind of threatening, uncomfortable environment. So please be careful of that. Learn from my mistake and have fun with your icebreakers. And we're going to ask you to have fun with the icebreaker today, which is called Great Expectations. And in this icebreaker, we're going to have you split up into breakout rooms, and the Toastmaster is going to invite you to a room. I mean, our Zoom master is going to invite you to a room. Please accept that invite. And we'll, once again, it's more random, just kind of mixing people together, give you a chance to know some of your fellow trainees. So please accept that when that pops up on the screen. And then you're going to ask you just to quickly say hello to your team, say hi and all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to have to volunteer somebody to be the reporter. One of your group will be the reporter, and we're going to ask each small group to report out on their discussion from this Great Expectations exercise. And what you'll be discussing is your expectations for this training. And we will have you get that from your reporter, put it all together. It's going to only take 6 minutes to do that. So it's going to go fairly quick. And maybe each one of you identifies one expectation. Maybe you'll all have the same expectations. That's fine. But we're going to ask you to get those expectations going, have your reporter ready to report out on what your small group did. And it's all going to happen in 6 minutes, meeting each other, identifying your reporter, listing out your expectations, and then we're going to ask you to come back to our main Zoom room. You don't have to do anything. The tech host is just going to close out your rooms and then send you back into the main room. And when you're in the main room, Cynthia is going to help me get those reports and track your expectations for today. And we're going to come back and look at those at the end of the day to see if we met your great expectations. So again, accept the invite to the breakout room, quickly meet your team, identify the reporter, list those expectations, have the reporter write them down and have them ready to go. And then after 6 minutes, close out your breakout room, and then we're going to return you to the main room, and we're going to go through and hear from each of the small groups and say, what were your expectations? We'll collect those as part of our process today. All right, so it's going to be fairly quick. Remember, you've got 6 minutes to make this happen, but we're excited to hear about your great expectations for Train the Trainer. So at this time, Madam Zoom Master or Mr. Zoom Master, would you send everybody to their breakout room? Super Toastmasters are back in the house. Very excited to hear about your expectations for this training today. Now, Daniel was able to break us up into some interesting group names. So I'm going to ask group by group, and your reporter come on and get ready to share your list of expectations. And Cynthia will be writing those down for us. And Cynthia, thanks in advance again for all you're doing today. So with that, we're going to go to Breakout Room Otter. Love that name. And does anybody know who's the reporter from Breakout Room Otter? Just speak up.
That's me. That's
okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Germano Termini. I'm part of the Lakeside Speakeasy Club, and I'm the reporter for the Otter Breakout Room. In our case, was actually a very interesting conversation. I would start with what I was mentioning to the rest of the group. I'm part of the University of California Office of the President and as a web developer there. And sometimes we train people on some of the tools that we use. So that was one of the expectations for me, would be to get some tips and tricks on how to improve and make more engaging my teaching sessions or training sessions that we have there. And also within Lakeside and Toastmasters more in general, I was asked to create a mini training session for free Toast hosts. So this was an opportunity to, again, get a few tips and tricks on how to do that better in a more engaging way. And I would say that this is basically what the rest of the group in the breakout room said. We had Hamdan, sorry if I butcher your name, he's new to Toastmasters and he would like to learn a little bit more on how to do trainings and everything. Lee was also mentioning the tips and tricks, how to make trainings more engaging. Artie was mentioned something that I really liked, how to make trainings more fun and more engaging. So that's definitely something that we would like to get out of this session today. And it was interesting also to say that it was people from all kinds of backgrounds. I'm actually in New Jersey. Most of the people there are in California in our breakout room, but it was interesting to see that there's a teacher, Elliot was teachers also able to provide some feedback there.
Nice.
That was what we discussed.
Wow, you guys did a lot in those 6 minutes. Thank you, Gerlando. And thank you for joining us all the way from New Jersey. Appreciate that. The next group is the IBEX group, and want to see if we have the reporter from IBEX.
I'm not sure what our group was called.
Okay,
Brendan.
Are you, so we had Leela, Michelle, Robert, Rosemary, Winnie, and Greg.
No, that's not my group. Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll get back to you in a little bit. So once again, the IBEX group, we have
Hey,
Greg.
Brendan, thank you
Okay.
so much. And Deborah for that clarification. We were not aware that we were the Apex group, so it's definitely a cooler name than trying to come up with one. So as the previous speaker had mentioned, several of us just wanted to reinforce current facilitation skills and help to pick up new ones. However, there were some individuals that are new to public speaking and are hoping to learn how to actually set up for workshops, how to engage the audience in lively conversation, and I guess how to use Toastmasters skills to further enhance their workshop skills. And then lastly, from I think a more experienced speaker, wanting to learn how to share our own personal experiences and stories to help others within a workshop to find their own path.
Nice. Thank you so much, Michelle.
you.
Michelle is the Sergeant at Arms for my two clubs. She does a great job. She has a nickname. It's called Taz. So just for your breakout room, please refer to Michelle as Taz. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to go to the Links group, and I believe that's Angela. Angela?
Hi. Yes. I think I just sent you the list of items for our expectations, but I'll describe them here.
Cool.
One is that we would like a training refresher. Another is that we have a first-time trainer, so learning all of the ropes would be very helpful. The third item is how to get more interactions with our participants on Train the Trainer. And our fourth and final one, which is a little bit long, is to hone in our training skills and as well as learn new techniques and technologies. For example, Zoom, AI, Udly, if applicable, ChatGPT, in order to implement them in a Zoom or other environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice. Interesting. Bringing up AI. Very fascinating. Thank you to the Links group. And this is a cool name for a breakout room. Breakout room puppy. Puppy. Do you know who your reporter is? Or I can read through the names if you're not sure.
I'm Deborah.
Deborah. Thanks, Deborah.
My group was a variation of some very accomplished professionals and quite diverse in what their goals are. I mean, to teach. I'm Deborah Weiner, and I am the successful club meeting trainer for D57. And I would like to hone my skills in creating enthusiasm and creating high energy so that people want to come to my trainings. And I want to be able to be of highest service so that I can can train and teach the people what it is they don't know that they don't know. Now, my group had some ideas about things they wanted to learn, and they wanted to learn new things that they haven't done before. They also wanted to learn things that you have been successful in your training, and they want to know those things. That's why we're here, and you so far have some really great ideas. So we want to be able to be more creative in our training and want our members to want to come back for more and be hungry for more. So to teach, detailed things that maybe the group, to learn our audience so that we know exactly how to teach to that audience, because each audience is different. So,
Yeah, good point.
there's a variation. There might be newbies, or there might be accomplished members in the audience.
Great, nice. Thank you so much, Deborah. And again, thank you, Cynthia, for taking these great notes and sharing that with everybody. Team Puppies, nicely done. Over to the Team Sheep. I have high expectations for this group because it was a smaller group, so I expect their list to be quite long. So that's Carrie, Margaret, and Steve. Who's your reporter from Team Sheep?
Hi, I'm Margaret. I'm the reporter for our group.
Nice.
Carrie and I were we're here to get involved and learn as much as possible today, learn new things. And for Steve, we did the in-person thing, we did the hybrid, the virtual thing, and now our clubs are moving into hybrid situations. So we want to merge the two and learn the best methods for presenting in that situation. So we're connecting with all. How do you maneuver from the group to the camera, that type of thing. So that's what we're focused on.
Nice. Thank you so much, Margaret. Appreciate that. Thank you, Team Sheep. Nicely done. And our next group is the Big Bear group with Ashley, Cassandra, Ed, Randy, Steve, and Yasir. Bear, who's reporting from your group?
I am. My name is Cassandra. Excuse me. My name is Cassandra Yerabivian, and our group came up with the following: to enhance to reach a broader audience, to identify our audience needs, to grow membership and help our members, to add more excitement to presentations, to get members more involved in meetings and to get a high energy in the meetings for more enhancement.
Right.
Thank you. I'm complete.
A specific purpose. Thank you so much, Cassandra. Thank you, Team Bear, and thank you all the teams there. And again, Cynthia's finishing up. And if anybody sees anything that we might have missed in our list here, let me know, because I'm excited about this list. And I'm mainly excited because the great presenters who are following me are going to cover, if not all of this, most of this. And again, we'll check back after all the other presenters have gone and make sure that we've covered these ones or figure out a way to get you the material after the training. So again, thank you all. And our objectives is our agenda, and our agenda is our objectives. We got some great objectives, which I believe will cover those expectations that you have. The first thing is we're going to focus on using a gap analysis to determine training objectives. How do you say, here's what they know, here's what they don't know? How do I get them to know what they need to know in addition to what they already know, So that is a very important part, but my favorite part of this training, I'm always geek out about this one, create a lesson based on adult learning theories. And again, every time I hear this, I get geeky, and I'm excited to hear what Dr. Jeff has to say about that. Then we're going to talk about choosing the right training method. This is only one line, but this is a huge part of what we're doing today. And we have two presenters working on all these training methods and getting you involved, not just learning about it, but practicing these training methods. So it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of work on your side, as any good training course should have. And then we're going to talk about applying facilitative techniques and evaluate your programs, how that goes. So these are our course objectives. And of course, this is our agenda as we go through the day. But now it's time to play the most important game of the day, speaker versus trainer. Please know that we're Toastmasters and we're all about public speaking, and I've seen so many people excel at public speaking just after 6 months of being part of Toastmasters. Those skills as a public speaker are great. And when you're leading training, you're going to leverage those speaking skills. Fantastic. But being a trainer is so much more. And when you're thinking Toastmasters, I'll get up and speak and speak and speak, and everybody will be trained, and I'll go away, and everybody will give me 5s on the evaluation. There is a big difference between what a trainer is all about and what a speaker is all about. We want to make sure that we discuss this now, especially in this organization where we're so focused on public speaking that sometimes we forget what that training is a little bit different. So we're going to go through and say, here's what a speaker would focus on in this different aspect of a presentation. Here's what a trainer would focus on in this aspect of presentation. So again, this is important to say there's a difference, and this will set you up for the course objectives that the other speakers will go through and present to you. So a trainer has certain things, and when it comes to the purpose, a speaker is there to inform, persuade, and entertain. That's the purpose of a speaker. Summarized very quickly, succinctly. That's what it's all about. For a trainer, the goal is to change participants' behavior through interaction. So again, this is something that's different from what a speaker would be focused on. Speaker is going to get up there and entertain you, inform you, maybe even motivate you. But a trainer wants your behavior to change and wants to do it in an interactive environment, which brings us next to the style of communication. For a speaker, it's one-way communication, blah, 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 blah. And then you get it or you don't, and the speaker is done. No way that you're going to experience that same type of experience as a trainee, because the trainer has focused on two-way communication. And again, I go back to doing the same material again and again and again, and it never gets boring because of the interaction with the trainees. So two-way communication, a vital part of what you do as a trainer versus a public speaker. And then when we talk about the method, it's very simple. In public speaking, tell you what you're going to tell it to you, and then tell you what was told. Tell them what you're going to say, tell them, and then tell them what you told them. All that, the standard speaking method, that's fantastic. But for the trainer, it's different. So the method is to determine what trainees know and need to know, then fills in the gaps. So it's that filling in the gaps and making the training tailored to the trainees. Very important, best way to use the time. So that's the method. And then we come to the tools for a speaker. It's humor, anecdotes, vocabulary, it's your words. And we know how powerful that can be, but for a trainer, it's a lot more. Your tools are lectures, role plays, exercises, case studies, demonstrations, visual aids, questions. All that is what we're going to be learning about later on. And that is the tools that you get to choose from and say, in my training, I'm going to use this role play, I'm going to do this case study over here, and there's going to be questions as part of it. So you get to choose from this tool set after today for what is best for there. And most trainers, lecture is a small part of what they'll do during training. So again, we're going to have you practice these tools today. And finally, evaluation. How do you get evaluated as a speaker? Applause. Yay! Sometimes you don't get it, but hey, whatever. But that's what you're doing. They applauded, they liked it, they smiled and nodded. Fantastic. You got your evaluation from that. But as a trainer, your evaluation is very different. You need to see behavioral change in your trainees. And that is what we're going to learn about today, is preparing a training program in such a way and using these training tools in such a way and having the interaction in such a way that the trainees' behavior changes. They're empowered, enabled, and of course, motivated to do things differently when they've completed your training. So now it's time for something completely different and for somebody completely different. Please help me welcome Dr. Jeff.
Me? That's right. I'm Dr. Jeff Levine. Welcome. Most of you aren't from my club here, so I am just going to introduce myself real quick. I'm an industrial and organizational psychologist. I work with adults with adult attention deficit disorder, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk to you about a few things: gap analysis, setting objectives in adult learning theory. Oh, and one thing, I grew up admiring the great pitchmen back in the 70s and 80s, guys like Crazy Eddie. Anybody remember Crazy Eddie? Ed Barbera, the president of Furniture USA, just all those pitchmen. So, and I love that style. So, hope you enjoy it too. And I am going to share my screen. Everybody give me some anticipatory music. Okay, good. Share screen. That's good. Share. Now, it doesn't mean because I'm sharing my screen that I have share here. I love puns also. I'm a great joke master for my club. First thing I want to talk to you about is gap analysis in training. Can everybody see my slide okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So, and of course, let's try this again. Gap analysis. It's the analysis to determine the skills, different skills that someone has, an employee or group has, and what they need, the skills they need to do the job, and what development is needed to do that. So there's a number of ways of conducting it. What do you want to do? Surveys is one of them. Gather feedback. Observations. Just observe people in their work environment and to identify where skills may be lacking. One of the people, just like I have several different mentors that are no longer with us, possibly, or I've never met. One of those is the great David Packard, who was the co-founder of Hewlett-Packard. Now, what David pioneered at Hewlett-Packard was what he called management by walking around. He would just like go over and hang out on the assembly where they built the products back in the day. Didn't like the work to see what was going on himself. And sometimes interviews, conducting one-on-one interviews with employees. Okay, and let me continue on to the next slide here. So here's an example, a real world example. A company wants to enhance its sales team's negotiation skills. Through a gap analysis, they discover that while the whole team has basic negotiation skills, they lack advanced techniques required to close deals. And by identifying that gap, they develop a training program, and the sales performance skyrockets. Hang on, give me a minute. Okay, we did that. So now y'all have your workbooks handy. We're going to do the proud and sorry exercises. How does this pertain to your club? And this is how it goes. We're going to give you some time in your groups to reflect on your club and identify what aspects you're proud of and what aspects you're sorry about. And it's for identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And you got to acknowledge the good, the bad, and the ugly. Normally a mother-in-law joke would be applicable there, but I'm despaired because my mother-in-law passed away. But if she were still alive, I would make a mother-in-law joke here. Okay. And we're going to put you in your groups, and you're going to discuss and reflect what you're proud of and what you're sorry about. It gets communication, networking, brainstorming, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so Ms. Tech Host, please put them in their groups. And how much time do we have here? Give them 5 minutes for this exercise, please. First, breakout room, Otter. What have you to say for yourselves?
All right, that's us, and I'm the reporter. So thank you. So we had a great group. Michelle is part of 2 Toastmasters groups, and she loves the fact that her groups are safe, encouraging, and supportive. She's concerned because with all this safety and encouragement and support, they don't attract more people. Mercy is in a group that does really effective round robin evaluations. So the speaker can hear from different people and give a lot of diverse feedback, but they have trouble filling. The problem is they have trouble filling speaker roles. And then Lee's group is extremely well organized. They just lack member longevity. They usually have a decent number of members, but the members don't stay in a long time. Ananda is a member of a 40-year club speakers. I'm blanking on it.
Star Search.
Star Search, I think. Right. And it's 40 years old, and people step up. Sometimes they show up to a meeting and the roles aren't filled, but when they get to the meeting, everybody volunteers and they end up by having great meetings. And I think we started, I think we started leaving the breakout room when he wasn't quite finished, but they usually get 10 out of 10 goals on that. So that's what I heard from all of us.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Steve. The next breakout room is Ibex, who's Brendan. Geriondo.
Yep,
Hope I pronounced that right. Randy, Steve, Trish, Victor, and Winnie. Someone unmute and give us the lowdown.
All right, I guess I'll go for our group then. This is Gerlando Lakeside Speakeasy Club. I guess a few things. I have a few unorganized notes. I didn't write down names or anything, but like a few things that were discussed is that all our clubs have great people. They're very, very well organized. A few nice things is that when some of the clubs do table topics every week, which is a great opportunity for people to participate more actively. And on the minus, so things that could improve is onboarding sometimes is a lot of work. So getting new members to stay or new members to get trained so that they know how to deliver a speech and so on and so forth are things that could be improved. Keeping track of who does what was another thing that came up. And I don't know if I'm forgetting anything, but please feel free to jump in, anyone from our group, if there's anything that I missed.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Breakout Room Links, who's Angela Lee, Cassandra, Deborah, Leela, Margaret, and Sri.
Okay. Hello, I'm Deborah, and the time went really fast. We didn't get through everyone, but I'm going to talk about, Cassandra talked about leaders worldwide and that they were really doing well. They were giving out awards for achievements. They're always a distinguished club. The members are very happy and engaged. I didn't get a sorry from Cassandra. Margaret talked about, she has a corporate club, and she said that they do have some outside members and everybody is very happy. Their challenge is that the officers or people are not stepping up to become officers. There's a lot of people that are tired of, being officers, and so they have just the same people that have been doing that role. And so they would like to have some other new people step up. I've talked about Quick Connections. The club is a new club, not quite a year old, and they're very successful in running their meetings. The employees and even the outside members are very happy. You could tell during the meetings, very engaged and can't wait to come back again. And of course, there are some new people that are terrified of speaking, but they are stepping up. And so you can see that they're really happy that they have the opportunity to speak and find their voice. The challenge is the officers do not understand the importance of going to TLI training and other classes because they're going, well, we're happy. Why do we need to go to training outside of work hours? So that is kind of a challenge. That's the challenge. But meanwhile, they are going to become distinguished this year. So even though they have that issue. I have another club I'll just mention. This club does have lots of challenges. I think that they have an audience problem, how to become a better audience issue about maybe interrupting people when they're speaking, so that when guests come, in the meetings, they have tech problems, and therefore it's really hard to get new members and to retain members. So this club is very much in need of a club coach or some help. But they are committed to maintaining their club and making sure that they're not suspended. So they're really working hard, the members that are still there. But this club really has some challenges. I think the interruption of people speaking is the main problem. So back to you, Dr. Jeff.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And let's see, who's the next breakout room? I think next is Breakout Room Bear, who's Ashley, DeMarie, Cynthia Scott.
Jeff, I got that. I got that for you. And so, thank you, Mr. Jeff, District 57 leaders that are here, our past district directors, our governors, thank you for your service, and especially our members. I love the word bear because that's the name of my dog, is Bear. So we're in the right group. Dee Marie, who belongs to Leaders Worldwide, was really interested in the impact on the audience that her club members do, the speaking, the so forth, and getting the meetings that are focused so people enjoy it. So the impact of what their club plans to do and how their meetings go. So thank you, Dee Marie, for those insights, as well as debating or looking at wasted time during the meeting. How can we tighten it up? How can it be more effective for our members? And so these are good observations that Dee Marie brings to the table for us. Cynthia also belongs to Speakers Worldwide, was the impactful speeches that she observes in her, out of her membership, the well-planned, well-rehearsed, and commitment to speak. And also the roles that people play, how the folks prepare for that. And then she kind of left the room, or the people started dispersing. So the only other one I was able to catch is myself. I belong to Ukiah Club and Tenacious Talkers, and I belong to a number of other clubs and other districts. But the one thing I enjoy in my clubs is the mentoring of the experienced members, giving to the new members how to do the different roles or functionaries in the club, working with them with the patience and letting them know this is a learning lab. We're allowed to fall down and we're all getting back up together. But at the same time, we acknowledge the younger folks in helping us learn pathways, the computers, and how things go. The one thing that I keep striving to improve, to work towards in our club, is the leadership roles, getting people to become leaders and start their journey so they can invest their time to improve on that. And the second thing is I'm a constant reminder that part of being a well-rounded Toastmaster is when you're outside the meeting of inviting guests to come to your meeting so they can find out the gifts that you have to give to them as well as our members. Mr. Facilitator.
Thank you so much. So we're going to continue on here. Everybody ready? Just like real quick, jump in the air and say, I'm ready. Boom.
I'm ready.
Yeah, yes. Let's get rocking and rolling on setting not objections. So this is setting effective training objectives, if I can get it. So well-written training objectives. They're action-oriented. They clarify everything and everybody's actions. They're really specific. You want something specific. They're attainable. You wouldn't want to set an training objective to make a spaceship to fly to Mars next Thursday, or whatever to do that. That is kind of not attainable. They're supposed to be realistic. I've heard one acronym for this: SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. Or the A can stand for action-oriented too. This is pretty much the same as that. Here are some examples. By the end of the training, participants will be able to effectively manage their time and prioritize tasks. And also, after completing the training, participants will possess the skills to deliver engaging presentations. So now we have another exercise. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this. And what we're going to do is just real simple, write down some training objectives. Here we have one, get people inspired.
30 seconds.
Acknowledge, learn tips and tricks to make training sessions more engaging. How to be a better officer, member, mentor, coach, audience member. Sell membership. Okay, on sell membership, sell how many memberships?
2 minutes.
Just a question there.
2 minutes is up.
Yeah, how to gain how to gain new members. Anybody like to shout out what their some objectives?
Have fun.
Yeah. I like that. Anyone else? Just call out.
Learn
How to
things that can be
enthuse-
immediately applied.
Yes. Who else?
How to enthuse members to join the leadership team.
Excellent. Who else?
Realize that you can actually change your life by becoming passionate about Toastmasters.
All righty. Anyone else? Okay, we are going to move on. Thank you all. I am so inspired right here. Next, we're going to get into adult learning theory. I've done teaching. I've done substitute teaching. I've taught adults. I've taught children. I've taught special needs. Everyone from like 5 years old up to oldest person was in their 60s or more. And I can tell you this, adults learn different than children. It's self-directed. Adults are motivated to learn when they have control of the learning experience. You all, like when you control something and can be a part of it. Practical relevance. You want something as adults that has applicability to their lives, their jobs, their clubs, whatever activity they're engaged in. So when you're designing a training session, what you want to do is you want to provide opportunities at self-directed learning and make the training content relevant to the participants' roles and responsibilities. How many of you would have attended this training this morning if it were on a training on understanding ancient Sanskrit? I don't see very many people with their hands up, so I'm going to say not many of you. Nothing wrong. I would love to learn ancient Sanskrit, but it's not applicable to my role in life or anything. I got so much other stuff to learn. Children, they learn through structured instruction and guidance. And even that's up for grabs. I'm challenging that myself, because just like I'm doing my work with people with ADHD. But for now, we'll go for that. Adults thrive when given space for self-direction and practical application. You want to be able to explore as adults. You want to be able to use it right away, not wait. There are a few different learning styles. They're unique approaches to learning that we use to process information. And this is just something, it is a theory. It is not something that has ever been proven scientifically or anything. It is just a paradigm, a way of looking at something. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just judge it by its workability. You have visual learners. And, excuse me, visual learners excel using images, colors, and maps. Visual learners use pictures to learn. And I apologize for the slide. I missed something messed up from porting from PowerPoint to Google Slides here. So I apologize for that last one. It has an inclination to represent ideas and concepts visually. That's how a visual learner works. Next, you have auditory. Excuse me. And they often learn effectively through lectures, discussions, and audiobooks. They're the talkie learners. And you want to turn audio into resources. You need like a lot of podcasts are good because they're audio, recorded lectures and discussions. And also musically, but you can put stuff to a melody, and a musical, oral, auditory learner would learn good from the music and retrain it. I'm an auditory learner myself. I'm a little bit verbal. Verbals are the readers. Now, I'm like a verbal auditory, and I'll sit there when I'm trying to put something together that I get, and they don't have the instructions. You ever see that? And they just have the visuals there on how to do it. That drives me nuts. Speak clearly with them, and write clearly. That's a verbal learner. Next is kinesthetic, or learning by doing. They're the ones who, like, the exercises are good, physically interactive, dance, engaging in activities, doing the exercise. So, with this, what you want to do to apply this is when you're designing a lesson plan, which I'm about to get into, you want to have it contain all of those elements. The visual, the audio, the verbal, and the kinesthetic. All of these. Just because there are things you can do, there are assessments to determine one's style of learning, but you know, when I started this training, I did not know any of your learning styles. And when you're training, you probably won't either. So you want to incorporate bits and pieces of each one. That is how you can move forward on that, and you can include everybody. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, which is creating effective lesson plans. So it contains the following components. Who your target audience is. Very important. With my target audience of Toastmasters members, I'm doing this presentation differently than I would if it were for NASCAR enthusiasts or academia. You want to clearly state what the objectives and learning expected outcomes of the lesson. Okay. Just you did the objectives, you want to clearly state that. And we did that at the beginning of this lecture, not lecture, training. We did that. Where specify the location or platform where the lesson will take place. You gotta say where it's going to place. If it's live, you gotta say, yeah, this will be at Oracle Center. Well, no, not Oracle Center, Oracle Park. And if it's Zoom, you want to say what the Zoom line is. And state that and let people know so people know where it is. Outline. For this training, we put together an outline and duration. We have a timeline. And provide a brief explanation of the importance and relevance of the lesson. You want to say why it's important for somebody to know this. And we did that at the beginning today. We said it's to train people better for the club. You want to have it organized. Logical sequence. Why? Start by establishing the importance. Who? Introduce the target audience. And we already went through that. What's that? Okay. So our exercise is come up with a lesson plan ideas. Okay, so I'm going to give you again. How much time do we have left? Okay, I'm going to give you 3 minutes and just come up with a really quick lesson plan. Okay, no hands, I see. Lee.
One of the things that's very important to do is to verify either the audience's familiarity with the topic before you explain it, and or to test with their retention of what you've already explained. And both of those things can be done by way of interactive activities.
Thank you. Elliot.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Jeff. One of the things that I always find is a problem, and so good lessons usually address a problem. In Toastmaster meetings, I've been to many clubs that, maybe have 12 or 13 members. And it seems like because we're accommodating people that don't want to speak, it seems like half of the club speaks all the time. They're giving the speeches, doing the things. And yes, some people are filling roles. But to make sure that the use of table topics or other possible speaking opportunities are given to people that do not have roles. So that's my objective. And one way to accomplish that is usually the Toastmaster look at the agenda and then see, oh, these 4 people don't have, and make sure that the table topics master knows that these 4 people need to be called on during table topics. And so that the table topics master doesn't tailor make prompts for people at their meetings that they know will be funny, or, hey, tell me that story again. So that makes sure that the table topics master is accommodating the people that do not have roles. So that's my basic objective and process.
Okay, thank you, Elliot. Do you all know what a perfect example is of a lesson plan that we are all familiar with? Move in closer. I'll tell you, our meeting agendas. Why? The meeting agenda has a theme always. Who? Introduce the target audience and their background, knowledge, or experience. We know they're Toastmasters. We know some people are not experienced with Toastmasters. and we invite our target audiences. The objectives, again, we have that, and the objectives are all listed out. And you have the speaker says what the speaker wants to talk about. Location. If we're physical, we say where the meeting is going to take place at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. And so people know where it is. If it's on Zoom, we provide the Zoom line for it. And of course, duration, it's outlined. It says on the thing, the meeting goes from 7:05 to 8:15 or whatever. So that's all on our Toastmasters agenda. And with that, I'm out of here. Our next speaker is Janet.
Janet Pang? Janet, when you're ready.
Okay, can everybody see my screen? Thank you.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. So my portion will be continuation of the first two great presentations. Now I'm getting into how to choose the training method that's appropriate for your group or audience. So I will cover 3 of the 5 training methods. The first one will be lecture. And the rest are interactive methods because, as the first 2 presenters said, adults learn best by doing. Now, can you hear me? I don't want to speak too loud.
You're good.
Good, thank you. So the first interactive method is exercise. Three will be role play. And 4 is case study, and 5 demonstration. I will not cover 4 and 5. That will be the next speaker. So let's talk about lecture. Now, a lecture is a prepared talk. You use it only if you must. We really encourage more interactive methods. So here are the plus and minus. Now, the plus is with a lecture, you can cover a huge amount of information in a short time. Oops, sorry about the, the movement of the slide. The minus is, if the lecture is too long, you could lose the audience interest. The participation will diminish and you will not get feedback. So that's the minus of having a lecture. Again, I said, you could lecture, that's one of the training methods to conduct training, but this is when you must. So when you do is use your learned Toastmasters public speaking skills. We all have that. Tell them what you're going to tell them. That's the preview. Tell them, that's the body of your lecture. And tell them what you just told them. You need to summarize. And of course, the main thing for adult learning is that you need to rephrase the main points to ensure they will remember what you just said. So if you have to conduct a lecture, then make it interesting. I think the previous speaker covered part of this. Don't read from a script. You need to know the material so that you could say it impromptu, say it naturally as you're speaking to them one-on-one. Limit to 6 major points. Don't clutter. Now, illustrate with stories and anecdotes. Share your personal story to make it more interesting and personable. and of course include the how-to material ahead of time. Okay, so more information. Well, lecture, please, during a training session is less than 15 minutes. Then, now this is the interactive method. It's applying even though you have a lecture. Is introduce an interactive exercise. Use visual aids as the first two presenter did. Lots of very interesting picture. Used because people remember more when you have a story or visual aids. And use handouts because that will encourage your participants to take notes. Now, to involve the participants, their attention, their retention is to ask questions, have breakout groups to discuss. We just did that for the first two speakers. The second method, exercise. Now, that is the highest retention rate. So try to use this method when you can. There are 6 steps that applies to all types of exercises. First, you need to introduce what are we doing? Then do the exercise. Then the participant get a chance to share their reaction. Because remember, participation is very important. Otherwise, they will lose interest. They don't feel that they're part of the group because we want two-way communication instead of a monologue. Then we discuss and evaluate the process. What worked and what didn't work. Then the group draw generalization from the experience. Well, I think this is a good concept because of 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to pause a moment to let you look at the slide. And now the participants can apply that principles. So that is one of the interactive method is to exercise. Okay, so we will do an exercise, okay, to show you how an exercise works. Now that is in your handbook, page 10. I will only use 2 minutes due to time. So let's talk about what is an effective trainer. So everybody here, okay, this is you. And I believe we're going to have a breakout group, but I want to give you the instructions here. So before you go to the breakout room, 3 things you need to do. Think about an effective training that you attended. Now, think about the trainer. What was effective about what the trainer did, or the program that trainer did do that made you remember still today? So I will let the tech hosts divide the groups of maybe 3 or 4, maybe more. It really depends on the breakout room size, and come back in 2 minutes. So looks like everybody is back. Welcome back. Okay, now you can see on your screen the audience participation, what some of you said. Let's compare that expectation in theory versus what the breakout group said. Now, due to time, I will only select 4 groups. Apologize if I don't get to your group, and hopefully if there are times left, you can cover briefly. So let's keep it at least just no more than 1 minute, please. The first group. Go ahead.
Elliot has his hand up. Did you have something to say, Elliot?
Oh, I just wanted to say there were some people that didn't get to share last time. And I know these are random groups, whatever.
Yes, and hopefully the reporter will be different from the last group. Okay, let's start with sheep. Somebody can.
I don't know who knows.
Elliot.
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
Am I a sheep? I don't know.
Sheeps are.
I'll share. Let me share. Let's just go. So our group said that using humor, allowing after a certain amount of the presentation to have a Q&A to make some clarifications before just marching through a set of slides. Another thing that one of my group members really liked was demonstrating, like using real life examples and not just talking hypothetically. And then another thing that I like, which I think is also part of a good speech, is having a real takeaway. Like you can go back and say, oh, I really love that idea and I want to take that back and try it. As opposed to like, well, that was a great training, but I don't know, right? So that's all.
Great. That is exactly what the exercise will be about. Okay, let's go to links. 1 minute, please.
Who are the links?
Ashley, Ed, Colin, Mike, Michelle, Tyree.
Remember, what do I got?
Okay, can you have somebody report? The links group, Ashley, Ed.
We talked about some of the things that we'd seen and done in different places. Ed talked about being a computer trainer. And then Tyree was talking about, he was looking for hand signals on how people could actually, you know, show your heart, show your head and things like that.
Good. Anything else?
I think we also talked about humor, use of humor, organization skills, again, that levity and being personable.
Great, thank you. The links group. Let's do the puppy. That would be Artie, Greg, Joe,
Hey, we got
Mercy.
you covered. So basically, we talked about different training experiences from Ed Tate to Tony Robbins. We talked about what did we receive out of it, and did we carry it forward? Did we pass it on? In other words, that we learned about training, we learned about how to be presenters. Now, are we doing it ourselves? What did excite us to move on and to share from our experience of learning and working to serve other folks through what we're learning here today? One thought was to do it now, and do it with fun. So we learn best in moments of enjoyment.
That's great. Okay, let's last group, and hopefully we still have one minute. The IBEX. That would be Ahmed, Deborah, Lee, and Wan Chin.
Okay. We talked about a lot of the things that have just been said by the previous groups. Interactive opportunities were really high on the list. Exercises, open discussion, be engaging, to have lectures, but also to have discussion about the lectures. And breaks were important, to have short breaks so that you can retain the information and recharge. Also, they talked about being, of course, well organized, and sometimes providing food, depending if it's like a couple-day seminar or a week-long seminar. It does help. Have water and food. Also to have humor, of course. Yeah, you have a lot of humor and high passion in the room to make sure that people are engaged and still open to learning. And have some real life experiences or information that to take home, like
Thank you.
handouts. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Timer, I think we are 5 minutes up, correct?
You've got 45 seconds.
Oh, great. Okay, if you could talk fast. This group, the bear, I believe. Yeah, let's let the bear talk. That would be Cassandra's, Margaret, and Trish. 45 seconds.
Sorry, talking, including real personal stories in it. Have a handout so folks can add their own notes, because the actual writing things helps also input information into your brain, so it's more in the brain, and visuals. Visuals are super important, and the activity as well. Thank you. Short and sweet.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. Okay, so this is a typical format of an exercise. And you see the involvement, you guys all passionate about it. You wish the other two groups that didn't get to share, now you wish you could, right? Okay, so let me continue the presentation. Now, okay, we just did that. You share your list. Now, did it match any of the agenda topics? I think some did. Actually, what I was hearing, many of the method that's included were covered by the participants. Now, did any of the lists match any of the adult learning principles that the first two presenters did? I believe so. Okay, let's move on because I will have more of the methods on the next couple of slides. So again, this is a typical exercise that you could do when you're doing a training method. Okay, the next method, I think everybody will anticipate to like this. It's called the role play. So the participant can use, as many of you had said earlier, we can use the techniques right away. And you can practice the method in a risk-free setting because this is a training, right? You can play your role without being embarrassed. And you could be aware of the real need because when you don't have a role play, you really don't know what are the real needs of the group. Okay, so here is a role play that we will spend 10 minutes doing, and it's to play the role of a sergeant at arms. So the purpose of the role play, well, we want to learn about the experience. How does it feel and to be a sergeant at arms? What is the response? What are the responsibilities? What are the needs that a sergeant at arms want that we need to understand? So that's the purpose of the role play. Now, let me explain the activity and the time limits in a second. And we'll, definitely in a regular role play, we'll split into groups, but today we will not due to time limit. And during the role play, you will assign roles. So on the next slide, I will tell you what will happen is that on a typical role play, you list the purpose, you explain what the participants will be doing, a time limit. So here the time limit is 10. The role play is to pretend someone is going to be sergeant at arms. We split into groups and you assign the roles. So here I'm asking for volunteers to do a skit for the entire audience. So I will need 3 passionate, either actor, actress, or just someone who's interested to do a role for a skit. First person, first volunteer will be you act as a sergeant at arms. You will be pretending to greet a first-time guest, and the second actor or actress will be the guest. You will pretend to be a guest visiting the club for the first time. And the third person will be the observer. You take notes, look at the responses and interactions. So can I have 3 volunteers to play this role? And you will play about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, anyone? Just raise your hand with the reaction. I just need 3 players. Okay, I've got Greg, Artie, and let's see, is there another raised hand? Nope. I need one more. Ah, Sherry, great. Oh, we got, okay, Sherry. So let you guys decide who you want to be. Okay, so Sherry, who do you want to be? You get to pick first. You want to be the sergeant at arms? It's best
I'll be
if
the
you,
sergeant at arms.
good, best if you were a sergeant at arms, okay? And so Artie, you'll be a first-time guest. Back, remember when you were the first time visiting a club. And the last person, I forgot the name here, will be the observer. Okay, so take a
Yeah,
moment. Okay, good. Take a moment now and just take a minute to start acting. So pretend now the guest is entering the meeting. You could start anytime now.
I forgot. Who's the guest? Is it Artie?
Yeah, I
Yes.
am.
Welcome, Artie. Oh, I mean, welcome to Train the Trainer Toastmasters. And what's your name?
My name is Aarti Kapoor.
Ah, and how did you find out about our club?
Oh, I was just browsing through in the area because I wanted to hone in my public speaking skills. And sometimes I have, like, I don't know what to say, and, you know, and I'm struggling with my words. So I thought I'll just do some practice. So I don't know what, I don't know what what it will be like.
Well, you're in the best position at this point to visit our club. And I would ask that you sit with one of our members, and they'll be able to provide you with kind of a guidance of what our club does. We do have an agenda, and they can help you with what is happening at each section of our club. And you said, what kind of profession do you do where you might be interested in improving your communication skills?
Yeah, I am a manager and managing 3 different teams. And in each team, there is there's 2 to 3 people. So, you know, sometimes it's hard.
Okay, all right. Yes, Toastmaster will help you with organizing, actually, you know, making your meetings more effective as well. Let me introduce you to our president as well as our VP of membership and also our VP of education. They have a wealth of information for you as a guest. We can answer any of your questions that you may have.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right. I don't think our time is up.
Your time's good.
Well,
actually, we cannot see anything. We are only seeing the slides. So
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is that you're kind of on a weird timing right now. So wrapping up here is good.
Okay. See.
Okay.
Oh, here's Sally, and why don't you sit next to Sally, and she will be sort of your helper for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you so much, Sherry. And I look forward to the meeting and the process you have here. Thank you.
That was great. Okay, so now in a real live training, then you will go to the next slide. Okay, because now
observer?
Yeah, well, the observer will actually report now. Okay, so this is what happened. Okay, you could actually reverse the roles between the 3 actor and actresses to get a different experience. So Artie could have been the sergeant at arms. Okay, so this is a typical role play that you could use during your training. Due to time, I think you all got the concept now that you could use role play as part of the training methods to get a real sense of experience. Okay, so now I will give you 7 minutes to discuss your reactions. And
Madam Speaker, you're really low on time right now, so you might want to just go to your observer, Greg, and then wrap up.
okay, thank you, a timer. So Greg, I'm going to have you discuss your reactions with the two great actresses.
Thank you, Janet, and team members and Toastmaster leaders all here. So we talk about the Sergeant at Arms greeting the person at the door. How many of us do actually have a Sergeant at Arms not only greeting guests at the door, but our members at the same time? So I was interested, what is your name? Okay, so you broke the ice. Sometimes if you invite a guest and you know they're going to show up, you might alert the Sergeant at Arms and the club president that I'm bringing a guest and this is their name. But if somebody just walks in, you want to get their name and ask, and it's a good question. How did you find out about our club? Usually that also brought out why they wanted to find our club. So they said, well, I found it on whatever sources out there. It helps you reinforce your PR of advertising, but it also automatically tells you why they want and what are their goals. So that's perfect. And I have to subscribe to what Ashley always says. Always make them a name tag, a guest name tag, so they feel included and they have that. And that's something that's very important. So when they said, well, you're in the right place, or this is where leaders are made, or this is how you improve your communication. So, but what I do as our Sergeant at Arms has the club mission typed out, and they hand it to them and say, hey, when you sit down and get just read our club mission. This is why we're mission focused and how to improve. The idea of assigning them to a member, I would immediately not say I'm going to assign you a member, which you later did say this is so and so to be there. Try to find a dedicated, focused mentoring type of person, caring, that's experienced in Toastmasters, to sit with these people, ask questions, and to work with them. One of the things they could include, besides saying this is an odd counter or this is the purpose of why we time, is say, you know, if this meeting is effective and you want to join our club, you're already invited. All you have to do is just ask me and we'll follow up on it. But we want to leave that open to you. We don't want to make it high pressure. I think in introducing them to a whole slug of people, you know, the president, the vice president of education, the vice president of membership, that's a lot to hammer them with off the bat. I think making sure that they introduce them to the president, and so the president can ask them for guest comments, or the Toastmaster can, however you do it in club, and they let that span of control. Then after the meeting, individuals can come up there and visit with them. And of course, you know, like all good Toastmasters, during the meeting, when they stand up to give a speech or they stand up to do a table topic in the introduction, they always focus and welcome our guests and whatever their name is. So again, this is the opportunity to grow and to allow to a member to think about joining, to change your life, but also to improve what you have in your club. The Sergeant of Arms can certainly coordinate it, but it's also the responsibility of the rest of us to be Sergeant of Arms, to make sure that we focus on the needs of that person, understand where they're coming from, and to share with them as well. Janet, back to you.
Well, thank you, Greg. You should be a speaker next time. That was wonderful, a summary.
I've done that a couple of times. That actually gets me involved in this stuff.
Great. See how the trainer worked for Greg? Now, so that was an example of a role play that first the trainer would ask the feedback for the discuss what happened. Actually, we only have time for the observer to speak. You could also have the actual, like Sherry, in terms of express her participation and her experience, and also the first-time guests. So that would be part one, discuss the reactions right after the role play. Then second, you would analyze the process. Now review the objectives. Did the role play meet the objective? And of course, and then feedback, which as I think we actually did some of it about the behavior exhibited and the practical application. So Greg summarized it very well. We could definitely take this back to our club. And last, we all want to know, so how did you feel about the role play, right? Now, did you enjoy that? What did you learn from this experience? That's the most important thing about the role play. And also, would this experience help you, or would you serve as a club sergeant at arms? That's the application for the role play. Let's say if that objective is trying to recruit a sergeant at arms. Okay, enough. Next. Okay, so how did you feel about the role play? I just said that, okay? And that is part of the learning process for adults. So summarize, there are 6 steps in any exercise. You introduce what is the exercise, you do the exercise, we did that. Participants share their reactions, and we discuss, evaluate the process, and we draw conclusion, generalization. What did we learn? And the participant can apply the principles immediately with a live experience. That is the difference between lecture and role play exercises. Okay, so I cover 3 of the 5 training methods: the lecture, the exercise to be an effective trainer. The role play was a sergeant at arms. Now, the next speaker after the lunch break will be a case study and demonstration.
This is Cynthia, and
Oh,
I am going to introduce. Thank you, Janet, for your presentation. Also, if you want a copy of this workbook, I got approval, so we can send it to you. Just share your email in the chat, and I will send you the workbook during this lunch break, so you'll have it for the rest of this workshop. Okay? Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. Without further ado, we have our next presenter, Talha Hamid.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And greetings. I believe it is late morning where you are. It is very early morning where I am, 12:34 a.m. It's great to be connected to all of you. And about myself, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, equivalent to what is known as CPA in the United States. For some strange reason, I find myself heading the training and development function of Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. I have been a professional trainer for the past 7 or 8 years, and I have been a Toastmaster for, not coincidentally, the same amount of time. I have served at pretty much all club positions. I've been a district director for District 122 Pakistan, and I have been awarded the DTM title 5 times, which is just to let all of you know that maybe there is something valuable that I may need to share rather than to just expose my credentials. So starting with the tools and techniques, the first thing that we need to know is, just give me a second here. So starting with everyone who's present here. First of all, and you can write in the chat box, what is your why? Why do you want to train? Any answer is acceptable. All right. It's rewarding to teach others, to teach people more effectively. So at Toastmasters, we're all about servant leadership. Share wisdom to become a better trainer. So be a better trainer, leave a legacy. Wow, amazing. So we're already starting to see the big picture here. I learn when I teach others. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. We're already starting to see the big picture where I believe that everything we do must and should have a higher purpose. And the fact that we train should have a higher purpose as well. Now, I would like all of you to share the one pain that you have, like the one hurdle, the one negative that you face while training in your experiences. All right. Oh, conciseness, having too much to cover in too little time, grow and give. All right, beautiful. Yeah, so I sense a theme here. I sense a theme here, and the theme is I don't like feeling stupid. Well, not known by others, not known by others by enough. All right. To what you expect to achieve, and the training outcome does not always equal to what you expect to achieve at the beginning. All right. To be effective and organized, of course. So, yeah, there's so many factors here that affect our effectiveness as traders. And yeah, I pretty much share all these hurdles myself, especially the one about the outcome is not always as expected. The training does not go as 100% as you would expect. But that is not you. That is not the audience. The audience is not as smart as I expected. In my cases, the audience turns out way smarter than I am. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing though. It's not you, it's not the trainees, it is the laws of physics. You can call it Murphy's law, you can call it entropy. It is in the structure of the universe that things do not turn out as you expect, as you plan. And the only answer is to be ready for contingencies. So moving on, here's something I've learned throughout my years as Toastmaster. First of all, we are all too obsessed about leadership. And what does that do to us? It brings us a sense of false, if you will, false grandeur. It gives a bit of arrogance. For example, if I'm sitting right here and there are about 38 other participants, if I focus on just the leadership part, I would be subconsciously thinking that I know best. And, you know, these people should know better. I'm here for myself, and I love the sound of my voice. And that brings me to my second point. Forget yourself, only your audience matters. In fact, that's not just true for trainings, it's especially true for trainings, but it's especially true for every other form of communication as well, especially if we are to communicate with an audience in a heartfelt and genuine manner. So, my appeal to everyone here is very simple. It is easier said than done, but we have to set our egos aside, our preconceptions aside, and our sense of entitlement aside in order to be really effective communicators. And why? What does that bring? For example, if I'm too obsessed about my own speaking style, my own goals, what I want to accomplish as a speaker every time I speak, I would be focusing on my own words. I'd be focusing on my own thoughts. I'd be focusing on impressing the audience. And this is where the train starts to derail, because we're not here to impress the audience. We're here to communicate with the audience. We're here to get a message across. And the message is all that matters. We are just conduits for that message. We are just vessels. And every time someone learns something new as a result of our contribution, every time someone masters something, we make this world that little bit better. That's what the thought should be. Think of this as, let's say, evaluations in Toastmasters. And my very dear friend, DTM Cynthia Yeh is fond of saying that evaluation is something that always changes a speaker. Again, laws of physics here. When you analyze something, when you try to detect something, it ends up changing that thing. It should change a speaker for the better. Similarly, when you're out to train, your one goal should be to make things better for your audience. We are facing a very challenging landscape, make no mistake about it. Even over the past 6-7 years where I've been training, I have seen the landscape change right before my eyes. And I won't go the obvious route and point out how COVID-19 changed the entire paradigm around training, around communication, because that is too obvious. But we are witnessing some other trends too. And those trends are things that we need to adjust to as trainers. First of all, shorter attention spans. That is a given. Gone are the days where people used to be patient throughout 8-hour training sessions. I have seen those days myself. Now, no longer possible. Not online, not in person. You have to change things up. You have to break things. You have to make things into easily digestible chunks. Lower capacity to absorb and process complex data. And this may sound patronizing, especially to the younger people, but it has a scientific reason. These days, technology has become very advanced, and most of us are just consumers and users of technology. Think about it. When I was in school, in our computer classes, they used to teach us programming languages like BASIC and Quick Basic. We used to actually peek behind the curtain and see what makes a motherboard works, what makes a screen works, what makes a CPU works. Our generation has a working knowledge of the inner workings of a computer. But as things progress and get more and more refined, the need for such teaching has been reduced, and the need for technical training has shifted to niches. It's no longer mainstream. And that is why today's computers are not even computers. These are these devices and everything at the tip of your fingers. It's the same thing. We used to learn the times tables when we were kids. And memorizing times tables, memorizing the table of 7 and 14 and 15 used to be the ultimate feats of intellect. But today, no one needs to memorize times tables because they're all available at the tips of your fingers. It's not about forgetting your earlier skills. It's about upgrading one's skills to make use of the technology. And that is something that we need to contend with. That is why these days we are not in a position to present our ideas as long, complex dissertations, theoretical dissertations, no longer possible. It is our duty to break everything down. And again, it brings me back to my earlier point that we should forget ourselves. We should forget our own intellectual pursuits and instead keep in mind the audience, what they need to hear and what needs to get across to them. Then there's a sense of entitlement, and that is universal. Even we have a sense of entitlement. When we used to learn something, when we used to go to a training program, we expected education. These days, a whole package is expected. For example, every event, every training event that I manage these days has to be a networking event first. I'm talking about in-person events. And secondly, we need to be absolutely particular about the care and feeding of the trainees. That is the first and foremost, and the content, the training content, that comes at something like 3 or 4 on the priorities list. That's how the world is these days. When people come to a training, whether they're paying for it or not, they feel a sense of entitlement to be entertained, to be amused, to not be bored, and to not have to apply their minds too intensely. Aversion to hard work, again, that that is not really a comment. It is not really a negative. It is just that we, all of us included, we are more and more averse to apply our time and effort to learn something. We'd rather have something pre-digested and fed to us. All of us watch YouTube videos about different skills, right? And while it's true that there are some skills that you can't learn while via just watching YouTube videos, you can't learn swimming by watching videos about swimming. You can't learn driving while watching videos about driving. There is a lot of stuff that you can learn just by watching videos. And that is why sometimes delivering your training in pre-digested chunks in storytelling forms may be more effective than actually trying to teach the technical aspects of something to your audience. And finally, distraction. This is a universal vein. We can no longer expect an audience that is riveted to the sound of our voice for hours or even minutes or even seconds, because we all are distracted. We all are distracted by our notifications on the cell phones. And even if we turn our cell phones on silent, aren't we always thinking about, okay, the moment I pick up my cell phone, what would I have missed? So yeah, we are prisoners to this thing. And even when we turn this on silent, even when we turn all our distractions to silent, we are thinking about those distractions. And again, all these things, we have to work our way around them. There's no other way. All right. So here is one of my favorite games of all time, Halo. And the developers of Halo actually said that we built this game around a very simple premise: 30 seconds of fun over and over again. And that is why this remains one of the leading games of all time. And what does it have to do with our session today? It has to do everything, because these guys convinced people to pay $50 or $60 again and again for sequels to this game in their millions. And they convinced millions of people to buy their game versus all the others. What was the addiction? It was a very simple principle: 30 seconds of fun over and over. And if you try to apply this to your trainings, I'm not talking about 30 seconds, of course, because 30 seconds is too short a time span to deliver anything meaningful. But even then, the important thing is variation and pacing and fan service. So, and for that, how do you do fan service? How do you play to the gallery? You get to know the gallery first. The most impressive trainers that I've witnessed, either in Toastmasters or outside Toastmasters, I've witnessed one common thread among all of them, and that is they're very particular about who the audience is. And they like to find out about the audience as early as possible so that they can gauge what kind of discourse would take place, what kinds of questions would come. Some trainers even go as far as to go on some of the attendees' LinkedIn profiles to see what their detailed backgrounds are. And why they're doing that? They're doing that simply because they want to deliver the best experience possible. And that is why fan service is important. In order to engage the audience, we have to give them exactly what they want. Or at least you have to give them most of what they want, along with some things that you want to give them. Make it a desirable package. Now, we've all encountered various situations in trainings, beginners, intermediates, and experts. And sometimes it works very counterintuitively. Now, what I'm sharing right now is my experience as a trainer, because I happen to belong to a very inherently boring field: accountancy, risk management, enterprise risk management, and such. but my second thread of trainings is presentation skills, thanks to Toastmasters. So when you encounter beginners, sometimes you have to show them the big picture first, a top-down approach. You need to show them this is where you will get. And that is why the usual techniques of showing them a spectacular video as a starting point works very well on beginners, because they are aspiring to reach that point. And they are more inclined to learn about the technicalities of what you're about to teach them if they already have in their mind that this is where we want to reach. For example, if you are actually conducting a training for an international speech contest, this is what I do routinely. I do not show them the video of past year's winner. I show them the videos of the past world champions of public speaking. Because why not aim the highest? If you'll aim for Andromeda, you will at least land up on the moon, right? So this is what I tend to show them, especially the beginners, the participants who are participating in a contest, international speech contest for the first time. I show them the world championship speeches, because those speeches are often the reason they have come into Toastmasters. And when I show them that, this is the winning speech from last year, and I'm here to tell you some of the ways through which you can work your way towards reaching this level, suddenly I have their attention. So this works best on beginners. Before moving on to intermediate, we can move to experts. So for example, again, applying the same situation. What if I'm conducting a speech, like a contest training session for speakers that have won contests in the past? Of course, I won't be employing the same techniques. What I'll be focusing more on are technicalities first, because that will grab their attention. If you go through the International Speech Contest ballot or a Toastmasters rule book or any document, you will certainly find something that is not that familiar, and rules keep changing. So you can start with something, okay, you think you know your way around what it takes to win an international speech contest, but did you know? And then did you know that can contain something that is new or exciting or unfamiliar. Finally, intermediate. And this is far tougher to tackle, and most of the audience that we encounter, we don't have the luxury to assess them one by one or what their levels are. So we tend to default to the intermediate level, which is safe for everyone. And then judging by the questions that come, or the queries, or the comments, then we gauge that what is the actual level of an audience. So nothing is ever that simple in life. We tend to default towards the intermediate level, and that intermediate level means that we have to approach them with a mix. We first show them something aspirational, for example, again, applying the same situation, a world championship winning speech. Then instead of telling them the idea of the idea that you will one day be standing on this stage, delivering a speech of similar quality. No, you then ask them and develop curiosity to, do you know what made this speech works? What do you think that speech works? Why do you think that speech works? So those are some of the techniques that we can use to tackle different levels of audience. In Toastmasters, there are so many projects, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the projects that can help you become better trainers. It's right in there. As Toastmasters, we are so lucky to have this absolutely fantastic material right at our fingertips. Researching and presenting is one such project, because you are supposed to research and then you are supposed to present. Now, most people take presenting as necessarily a PowerPoint presentation. That is by no means the case. Presenting can be a verbal presentation as well. Presentation can be a set of pictures as well. It can be just you standing on the stage. But what researching and presenting does is equip you for more professional situations. You're not just speaking your heart out. You're not just telling the audience about yourself or what you think, but you're actually reporting facts to the audience and your interpretation of them. Then there's the Understand Your Communication Style project. That is very essential, and I urge everyone to do all these projects as many times as they can. I know I have, because they always help you. And you emerge on the other side as a slightly better speaker and trainer every time you do these projects. So you must understand your communication style, and then you must also learn about other communication styles, because guess what? You might need to switch up. There's not just one communication style that is an answer to every situation. So you must know about different communication styles and then apply those communication styles. Thirdly, managing a difficult audience. Now, this is something that, of course, at least in my part of the world, this is one of the most popular projects, because every time this project is announced, people are all but scrambled to get in on the list of interrupters. And boy, do they have a field day. Or they almost never stick to the limit of an interrupter being able to interrupt once. They like to interrupt multiple times. And I believe I let that happen. Why? Because I believe that in real life, when you're standing at a real stage and you're facing a tough audience, for example, if you're an executive announcing layoffs at a company before a gathering of employees, you would expect a rough audience, and they will not by any means stick to a limitation of just having the ability to interrupt once. They will interrupt as many times as they wish, as loudly as they wish. So that is a very useful project, and I sincerely suggest to everyone that if you can even ramp this up a little bit after doing this the first time, if you can ramp this up and ask your interrupters to be more and more ruthless, then by all means go for it, because that will make you a better trainer. Q&A session. This is also something that I tremendously enjoy, because what is a training except an exchange of data? And without questions, that exchange of data is not completed. So you need to get good at delivering something meaningful that actually invites discussion. And that is one aspect of this project that many people ignore. You just cannot deliver an icebreaker and then invite questions. People are not terribly interested about the personal details of your life, right? They won't come up with compelling questions. You should deliver something question worthy that invites thought, that has facts, that has real life implications. And then you go do this project. And then you'll have a very good experience of being able to answer questions and keeping the discussion going. And again, like all of these other projects, that will make you a better trainer. Connect with your audience. This is especially useful, I have found, when we are doing club officer trainings, especially the role trainings. Why? Because many of those trainees are doing those roles for the first time. They've signed up for those roles, they've gotten elected, and they have very little idea about what needs to be done, because it's all there in it's all there in the Toastmasters manual. But if someone read manuals, perhaps you wouldn't need all these sessions, right? So it has to be reinforced. It has to be a multi-mode training. Yes, you can ask them to read the manual, but then you can also trust that only 1% of them will actually read the manuals. And that's the reality of the world we live in, right? So connect with your audience actually teaches you to tackle an unfamiliar subject, a subject that is not familiar to the audience, and making it easy for the audience to absorb. So this is something I believe that any aspiring trainer should do again and again. And finally, effective visual aids. And these days trainings are not just verbal presentations. Gone are the days. They need to have a visual element to it. And even if they don't have fancy graphics, but they should have something to grab the attention of the audience. These are some of the projects in Pathways that can assist you in becoming a better trainer. And I believe and I trust, having done these projects myself and having guided several mentees through these projects, and especially those mentees who have actually aspired to become trainers. Some of them have actually done training sessions and they've excelled at them after doing these projects. What are the tools that you can employ during a training? First of all, interactivity, questioning the audience, inviting them to think. So for example, I asked 2 questions in the audience at the start of this session, and both of the questions proved tremendously helpful because the answers actually helped set the pace. They gave me the confidence that many of you were thinking along the same lines as I was thinking. And they were very much aligned with what was to come in this presentation. And also I got to know the thought process of the audience. And also in a more insidious way, the level of comfort that the audience had with Toastmasters materials and the whole enterprise of training and getting trained and then passing on that training to others. Second is survey. I've seen this employed successfully, especially in recent trainings. There are many web-based methods of surveys. If you're training on Zoom, maybe you can just use Zoom and float a poll, get those poll readies beforehand. Instant surveys actually are tremendously fun and they add credibility to what you're about to say. Then there are role plays and simulations. These are actually employed more and more in very serious corporate trainings that we've been conducting recently. We have found that role plays and simulations are some of the most popular, most effective segments of our trainings. No matter how dry the subject is, if you can convert it into a role play or simulation, it will be much better. Let me give you an example. In the institute of whose training function I had, we do a 5-day directors training program, and I'm sure there's a version of this program present in every country around the world, including the United States. It's a 5-day program that is actually designed to inform the directors and aspiring directors about the laws and statutes and the penalties and the responsibilities that they will need to carry as directors. And as you can see, this very sentence has the ability to make one fall asleep, even mid-sentence. It is that boring. Yes, it's all about laws. It's all about, and it is scary too, because it is mostly covered in the first day. And at the end of the first day, the one feedback that we get from directors is that, we didn't know we were signing up for this, because the penalties and even the possibility of hefty fines and even going to jail, that is brought up. And some of that is very alien to the audience. So how do we actually ensure that this very dry subject is actually well absorbed? Of course, we first make them go through all the laws, but then we have a simulation board meeting. And in that board meeting, the practical applications of all those laws are actually explored. So one of them gets to be the board chair, and the others get to be the directors. But they're not just directors sitting on the chairs. All of them have secret agendas and ulterior motives, and that's what makes them fun. All of them are separately given their handouts, and they're asked to perform those roles. So it brings a whole lot of fun, and the subsequent discussion actually helps break down the laws for them. So moving on. further engagement techniques, eye contact, visual aids, voice modulation, pacing, and interaction. I like to think that I achieved some success as a trainer simply because I was in Toastmasters. And Toastmasters teaches me again and again that these are the techniques to engage an audience. There are several presentation styles, and you can pick one of these presentation styles, or you can change between them. There's a visual style. We'll go through them one by one. The visual style is helpful when speaking to a large audience with broad interest, and we've all seen the famous presentations that Apple does when they're launching their new products. Those are highly visual presentations. Steve Jobs was a pioneer of this trend, and they carry this to this day. The second is free form style. It is impromptu style. Many motivational speakers, and many speakers who have actually quite a high reputation, for them being on the stage is enough. So they've adopted this style, and this mostly works with short presentations, and of course, this mostly works for presenters who are actually delivering the same presentation everywhere they go. The third one is instructor style, and that is like, just to summarize, recall when we were in school, our teachers were using instructor styles. So they're all very highly logical with very little room for creativity, or they're just fixated on delivering as much content as possible. Storytelling style, the style that is championed by Toastmasters, and most speeches are actually storytelling style. Now, in most situations, this can work well, but we should also bear in mind that sometimes the audience will not appreciate a story because the subject matter is too technical or too serious. And if you do break into a story, it will break their concentration. They will not appreciate it, especially if they're an advanced audience. So use stories, but be very careful with them, and only when you research your audience earlier. Then there's the connector style, and it is all about interactivity, back and forth with the audience, back and forth. And again, many motivational speakers adopt this style. They're constantly interacting with the audience. They're calling out random people from the audience and saying, okay, for example, I would say, Cynthia, what do you think about this? And Janet, what do you think about that? So this is constant interaction, and it can work for a while. It will make them comfortable. But after that, you'll need to get down to business, unfortunately. Then there's a Lessig style. This is all about using visuals to support your message. You can use this style to create a visually stunning presentation that will keep your audience engaged. Now, in this style, this is named after Lawrence Lessig, a famous speaker who used this style. Now, there are some there's training occasions where you're designing web-based training programs. You're not necessarily conducting them live, but you're designing them for a learning management system. And in that, this Lessig style will work very well, because the more animations, the more interactivity, the more movement the presentation has, the more engaging it will be. And if you see, some of that is also present in the Toastmasters pathways. When you go through and click through the slides, there is some variation. It's not just text. There are surveys, there are videos, there are, connect the dot style segments. So it's not as visual as a Lessig style, but there is some variation in that. And finally, there's the Takahashi style. This is all about using simple visuals to support your message. And you must have seen that sometimes the presenter will just stand against the backdrop of a very simple picture or a painting or a quote, and they will deliver an entire presentation centered around that. So this is very minimalistic, and it works very well for presentations that are inherently simple. They don't have too much complex ideas to deliver. Now, the final is coach style. This is all about coaching your audience. And what is coaching essentially? The coaching is actually a more intimate relationship between you and your audience. if you're trying to teach them a skill, for example, imagine a karate dojo or a music class, or let's say any class that teaches a sport like swimming. That is more of a coaching style, presentation style. Of course, again, this is where my earlier analogy comes in. Like, you can't learn swimming through a PowerPoint presentation or through watching videos on YouTube, no matter how good they are. So no matter how good the visuals are, there are some skills and techniques that you have to learn through coaching. In the Toastmasters world, a good recipe for a coaching style presentation would be, and I heard that in one of the earlier presentations as well, about how to greet guests, how to greet guests that come into your Toastmasters meeting. So you can present your audience with an endless list of do's and don'ts, but unless you actually take them on and actually guide them physically, how to talk to someone, how to shake hands, how to show around, that will not really work out. So these are some of the presentation styles that are available for us, and this is just to see these are the several tools that are available to us. So in conclusion, I would just say that once again, I'll reiterate that it's all about the audience. It's never about you. Whether you are delivering a technical training, whether you're delivering a life story, and or whether you are in a Toastmasters Club Officers training, you need to keep in mind your audience. The more preparation you do before a presentation in terms of not only researching content for your presentation, but researching your audience as well, the more effective it will be. Secondly, you will have to fight the urge to use too much technique, too much technical data to display your own presentation mastery, your own flair, your own style. And up to a certain point, it can work well too, because after all, that's what we are being taught, to be effective presenters. But up to a certain point, after that, the audience has to take over. And ultimately, all you need to do is to remember the audience and their desires and their aspirations, what they're here for. And that is how you will make it all worthwhile. Thank you so much, everyone. And over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Talha. Thank you so much. It was very enlightening. And I learned so much. Like, thank you for giving a different flair to all the other great presenters as well before you. So just letting everyone know, we're going to have one more break, a 5-minute break, and then it's the final stretch. We'll have our last presenter and then some closing remarks afterwards.
Facilitation has to do, a lot of facilitation has to do with providing feedback to participants about how their participation is going from your perspective as the facilitator. How engaged are they? Can they get more engaged? Explore the do's and don'ts of visual aids. Talha touched on this very well, and I'm pleased to piggyback on what he says. And then discuss difficult participants and how to think about these wonderful folks. All right. As I said, I do think that there's a goal of facilitation. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter what your topic is. I think that there is a universal goal. Has anybody thought about this before? Like, what are we doing as facilitators? What's really the overarching effort? Well, I'll save you some suspense. I firmly believe that facilitation, the goal, no matter what you're doing, is to strive for 100% engagement of 100% of the participants. for 100% of the time. I did not say it was an easy goal. I said it was a universal goal. It's so lofty that it's almost religious in a way. You can't ever achieve this 100%, 100%, 100%. But at the same time, that should be what a facilitator strives for. Stated another way, facilitation is the art of engaging people. That's what it is. Now, can this always happen 100% of the time? Probably not. In the course of how long I've been talking so far, somebody's cat has probably walked across their desk. And it's probably been Cynthia whose cat walked across her desk. And Cynthia, if you're still stroking your cat's tail, well, you do you. But the facilitator takes note of this, always has his eye on it, or her eye on it. And really the re-engagement piece is the art of facilitation. As a facilitator, you are really an artiste. And I don't think that that's too highfalutin a term. Every facilitation technique I can think of, every single one, should be in service of the unattainable goal of 100% engagement, of 100% of participants, or 100% of the time. I'm hard pressed to think of something within the umbrella of facilitation that is not in service of that goal. Maximized engagement is the name of the game. Now, by way of the chat, can you tell me just briefly what your experience is with facilitation? That's to the whole group. Do you have a lot of it? Are you just dipping your toe in the water? Do you have only a little? I don't recall that question being asked so far in this event here. I see Cassandra, are you raising your hand?
Yes,
Okay, let's go.
it's by a select few. It's just by a core number of people, select few of people that are engaged, that comes to the meetings every week, that are participating. I wish that I can get all of our members to come in and participate.
Okay, okay, great. So you have some members that show up.
Correct.
But they are kind of unengaged. Okay,
Ones
great.
that are actively involved, that will take on roles, that will sign up for speeches, that, you know, will actively be involved in the meetings. There are some that will not show up, will not be engaged. I mean, you have to show up to be engaged. So here we go.
All right, thank you. Very good feedback. What about your level of experience? Let's hear from someone else. Your level of experience with the actual part of facilitation. Have you done trainings? Have you done workshops? Have you conducted classes? I'm not seeing very many hands here, so I'm going to assume that people are relatively new at this, which is probably why you're here. So that's fine. Okay. So a centerpiece. Oh, Tyree, you raise your hand. Go ahead. You know what, Tyree? I cannot hear you very well. I don't think anyone else can either. So you might want to mess with your audio a little bit. We'll come back to you. A centerpiece of facilitative questions, or facilitation rather, is to ask questions. Why? Because so much of facilitation has to do with discussion. So much of adult learning theory has to do with engaging people. And so it's important that we understand the arsenal of questions that we have at our disposal. First of all, there are open questions. And that is very much what it sounds like. An open question doesn't demand a specific answer. It's really to gauge or to see what an audience thinks about a topic. Closed questions, almost the opposite. It is looking for a specific answer. Maybe a little bit more than a yes, no, but not much more. A particular fact, or see if the audience can recall a certain piece of information that you've taught them already or is already familiar with the topic. Overhead. This is addressed to the group. And direct. Whoops. Directed at a particular individual. So let's explore these questions. Have my little iconography here. There's 4 symbols. This up top is the timepiece. So when is the question appropriate? Second here, the strong arm. What is the strength of the question? Third here, the face. What might go wrong with this type of question? What's its drawback? And then finally, the person here with the star, how you can bring it back. So an open question, our first type. When do you think that might be time to use an open question? Any ideas? You have a workshop and it runs from such and such time to such and such time. Artie?
In the beginning?
Yeah, could be. Or at least not near the end.
Yeah.
Okay. The strength of such a question?
Know your audience.
Know your audience, okay. Whatever they think about a topic. Or their level of familiarity with the topic. How about a drawback?
They might be intimidated by the question.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, they might be intimidated. It also does not necessarily engender conciseness. So if you ask a question, the thing about asking questions is that you might get an answer. So you have to be prepared. So there's a range of answers that are correct. Okay, these are just some of the ones that I thought of as the major ones from my experience. Open questions when the goal is to generate discussion. Strengths of it is that it gets the conversation going. It can kickstart a group. Potential weakness, it's not time efficient, usually. So if you ask an open question, you should have some time for follow-up. But the way you might bring it back, if you have a question you've asked and an individual or a group of individuals have really taken that question and start to really beat the dead horse, as they say, you can focus on a piece of the person's question and highlight that. And then perhaps redirect, maybe to another individual or to the next segment of your talk. All right, how about closed questions? When do you use a closed question? Let's go with Victoria. Told you how to call on people. She's looking like, oh, there she goes.
At the end.
At the end?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you don't have as much time at the end, sure. Okay. How about what's the strength of a closed question? One of them I can think of is that it tends to be easier to manage and it gets a quick answer. How about a weakness? Weakness
Doesn't invite thinking.
Pardon me, say that again, please.
It doesn't invite thinking. It's a yes or no question.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you might get an insufficient response. in which case you might have to follow that question up with a different type of question. And if that happens, how might you climb out of that pitfall? So if the response is not efficient, or excuse me, if the response is insufficient or too shallow, you could refer back to the question as though the question you asked was insufficient, and then put the question in a different way. So to recap, when to use a closed question to verify basic understandings. As Victoria said, near the end is a good place for this. It gets you quick input. That's what it's good for. Drawback potentially is the response can be unclear or insufficient. But to bring it back, you can reframe the question. Put the responsibility back on yourself as the facilitator. Third type of facilitative questions, direct questions. Right, now we're getting to the fun stuff. When might you use this? I like to use it when I want to even out the participation. So when you want input from a specific individual. Direct is actually calling on somebody. A strength, as I said, is to even out participation. In your classes, your workshops, whatever you want to call them, you're always going to have a mix of people and participation, as Cassandra said earlier. Asking a direct question of an individual or particular side of the room, perhaps, that may not be as engaged, this can even out that problem. A weakness of this particular method is that it possibly is you call on somebody and you might get crickets or just I don't know, a monosyllabic answer, or even worse, a grunt. Who knows? But whatever the person responds with, if it's just a yes or a no, try to relay your own experience to them, or relay how you feel about that particular question, and ask them, do you find that to be true, Cynthia? I always feel this way about this particular question. Do you find that to be true? And Cynthia will say, well, yeah, I think so. Or, yeah, well, not so much. But either, however she answers, you can work with that. And then finally, overhead. When might you use an overhead question? That overhead means, again, to the group.
Lack of time.
Okay. I would also say when you want to engage the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if you're introducing a topic that the group doesn't really know much about, or you don't know what they know about the topic, you might throw this out there. Hey, for anybody. A strength is that it encourages open feedback. If I'm asking a question to everybody, I'm giving the group permission. Hey, anybody can chime in with feedback here. The pitfall or the potential weakness here is that answers may be unexpected or jarring. I tell you, I had one instance in which I was teaching a college course, and it was kind of a back to school related type course. And I asked an overhead question that had to do with what people really wanted to get out of the course, let's say. And I had a student say, you know what, Lee, I've attended these kinds of classes before, and no offense, and it's not you, but they're kind of all the same, and I'm really sort of bored by this, and I'm just kind of trying to get through it. Okay, she wasn't trying to hurt me, or she was just being honest. But that provided me some information. I could work with that. So how you might climb out of that pitfall, or how you might bring it back, as they say. Explain what you bring to the table. I understand that you think this class is boring, and I totally respect that. But you said earlier that one of the things you want to work on is your research skills. So when it's time for that sort of group work or individual study time, I can work with you and show you what you really need to know about how to write a research paper. So explain what you bring to the table. Tyree, go ahead. You're still on mute, Tyree. Yeah, sorry. I have a overhead question for you. What about people who don't pay attention? Let me make it even harder. What about people who are on their phones? And let's say you're leading a workshop at work, and the person who's on his or her phone is your director. I actually had this question come up by a Toastmaster. Lee, what do I do? I give presentations at work, and she stumped me a little bit. The people who are supposed to be paying attention are sometimes the people several levels up from me. How do I deal with that? Yes, sir. I see. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. In my experience at work and in Toastmasters, when you have a distracted person with another focus, if I can think of something good to say about them, they're an achiever or something, their rank or position, something is positive and notable, I can point that out and call on them. All of a sudden that puts the attention on them, and then they're going, uh-oh, everybody's watching what I'm doing. It's a polite way to transfer him from focusing on his phone or whatever it is a distraction back into what your message is, because you've also recognized them as a speaker, and usually they feel obligated to be ready for input that they made because you recognize them.
Sure. I would only add one thing to that, and you might have hinted at it, and that is you don't want the person to feel as though it's a gotcha. So if they truly weren't paying attention, I would reframe the question a little bit. I'd add the context back in. So I would say, Mr. and Ms. Director, we were just talking about A, B, and C. And I would walk through the context of it again and give them a chance to, okay, I'm back here, here we are, and they're not going to be embarrassed. Because if you embarrass them, that might be one of those things that people refer to as a bad career decision. But yeah, very good feedback. Thank you. And on the subject of feedback, transitioning now, a lot of facilitation has to do with providing feedback to the participants. And I like to do this in subtle ways. I don't like to tell people outright or give them a full frontal assault about, hey, I noticed you don't look so good, or you haven't been really present with us lately, and you've been really quiet. And I don't particularly care for that if I don't need to do it. Instead, I like to provide feedback early and often and at small little checkpoints. So what I'd like you to do just by way of group discussion. We're not going to go out into a breakout room right now. I have a scenario for you. It's a simple one. You're leading a workshop or training, and you have a participant who seems disengaged, and now it's time to break them into small groups to do an activity. And the low engagement participant is assigned to one of the groups, of course. And you notice their engagement remains low. So they're in the midst of doing their activity, and they're just kind of, they're just kind of sitting there in the corner. What can you do to encourage their participation during the activity? Consider the basic assumptions are that you've introduced yourself to the class, you made the environment friendly, you've acknowledged the participant before, and you've shown interest in their potential feedback, but you don't know the reason why they're not engaged. What are some possible causes? Here's our brainstorm. What are some possible causes of the low engagement? Possible causes. Cassandra.
They haven't made the connection as to what the training is offering them versus what their goals and aspirations. So, for instance, at Leaders Worldwide, we do an assessment and we find out exactly what their goals are, why they came to Leaders Worldwide, what are they looking for Leaders Worldwide to give them. So bridging that gap and finding out exactly what it is. So for them, they haven't made that connection. And for me, my job would be to say to myself, okay, they haven't made that connection. So for me as the facilitator, I would, if they're quiet, I would stand up and say, okay, give an example. If it's leadership or communication, whatever the case may be, I would help them to see this training is going to offer great leadership skills. It's going to offer communication skills. I would give an example of how this training is going to bridge that gap for them. And hopefully that's going to help them make that connection.
Yeah, and it's best if you do that early on so that you preempt the problem.
But again, reiterate that for them.
Sure. Okay, good. Thank you. Ananda.
Sometimes I feel people in such situations because they have a lot of ego and they feel that I know everything. I'm nothing new to learn here. And they are just there because they have to be there for some reason, to fill some attendance or somebody else is paying for it or something, And ego, I think, is a very good major point, and I have nothing new to learn here. So I can teach these people, something like that, I feel.
Good. Thank you. Greg?
Yes, I was told I had to be here and I didn't want to be here. And so I'm here sitting through this. And my response is, okay, let's change it. What's the one thing that I can give you that you can take away from this training experience that you can do, make your day worthwhile? And tell me, maybe you have that in mind. If you share that with me, I can focus on this through the rest of the lesson.
Very good. Very good. Get right to it. Hone in on it. Wonderful. Tyree, do you want to try again?
I'm going to try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. And so I'm going to take the opposite view of what Greg just said, which is perfect. But some people lack the confidence or they're distracted, right? So sometimes it's on the audience member. If they're lacking the confidence, they came because they heard it was going to be good, but they're really not ready to prepare. So can I approach them with saying, is there an idea that you would like to think about, or can I say it for you? Right? If you can just agree with my statement, then that's a start. Yeah. And then encourage them and says, I'd like to come back to you if we agree on something, and just kind of check in. And you can do that non-verbally as well as verbally.
Right. Right.
Oh, real quick, can I just go one thing that you had said earlier? I just wanted to say to that point that you have on the overhead, that's an opportunity to have fun. Not just that somebody can be distracting, but you can also throw in a rejoiner or something just to bring in humor and levity. That's what my point was. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go with Steve and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Steve.
Joe just beat me to it in chat. Somebody might have a crisis going on.
Yeah.
And, they're here at the session, but like Joe just wrote, they could have somebody in the ER that they're worried about and, they want to participate, but their mind is somewhere else.
Absolutely. And so all of you who provided feedback just now, some of you talked about things that had to do with the course or the training. Some of you had talked about things that have absolutely nothing to do with the course of the training. Whatever's going on with the participant, you may have control over it, but you may have no control over it whatsoever. All you can do is provide the environment. So I have the slide here says it takes sensitivity and commitment to deliver effective feedback to participants that is edifying and encourages better participation. And sensitivity and commitment, yes. So you need to be thin-skinned in one sense. Thin-skinned in the sense that you can read people and you try to understand what's going on. Thick-skinned in the sense that whatever's going on with them is probably not having to do with you. And through practice and experience, you can develop a more sophisticated filter for what you let in so that things don't get to you, that people's attitudes, you don't start absorbing all of that, and you keep your level of sanity as a facilitator and you remain effective. Okay, I'm going to move on to visual aids. I do have a lot to get through for this. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to talk about cats. Again, I picked on Cynthia about her cat. So about feedback, there I have one final but important point to make. Check out cats. But seriously, what I mean by cats, it is a book called Classroom Assessment Techniques by Thomas A. Angelo and K. Patricia Cross, and it looks like that. Now, I know it says a handbook for college teachers, but I don't care if you're not a college teacher. I don't care if you're never going to be a college teacher. What CATS does is supplies you with a bunch of different types of activities for a bunch of different types of occasions and topics. And you can cut through a lot of the feedback thing using these activities, and you can preempt a lot of problems in the classroom or the training room by employing classroom assessment techniques. Just a couple of examples real quick. One of them is an exercise where if you're in person, you can have one side of the room represent low familiarity with the topic, the middle side of the room represent intermediate, and the right side of the room represent expert or nearly so. And you can ask different topical questions and ask people to stand up and go to the area of the room where they feel they fit best. And you facilitate a discussion based on that. Why do you feel as though you don't know anything about this subject? Or how is it that you feel that you're an expert? Tell me about those things. And you can assess your students that way or your trainees that way. Very powerful tool. Another one that I will mention, and I'm playing chicken with my time, but that's okay. Another one I'll mention just real quick, just to illustrate the power of these exercises. One is called the text-based seminar. You don't have to remember this, it's in there. But the text-based seminar is used for when you want to engage a group on a topic that is fairly complex and for which you want to broaden people's minds. So you'd start with handing them maybe a one-pager, an article or case study or something like that, give them time to read it, and then you facilitate a discussion. And the discussion you facilitate goes like this. People vote for A is the most important piece of this article. How many people vote for A? B, this other fact is the most important piece of this article. How many people vote for B? C, this other fact is the most important piece of this article. How many people vote for C? And then you take those results and you discuss. How come you voted for A? Why did nobody vote for C? Why did so few people vote for B? And the discussion that ensues is always lively. And it's always a great experience. It takes a lot of practice to facilitate. And I mention it only because this is the kind of power that this book and the activities within it provides you. So classroom assessment techniques, if you're a facilitator or want to be, you should check out the book. All right, transitioning to visual aids. And I have a profound thought. I'm a very smart person, very insightful. My profound thought is visual aids should aid, not detract. Aren't I a genius? So smart. But I mentioned this to you kind of tongue in cheek, of course. And let's do this. Let's go ahead and pick on PowerPoint, because PowerPoint is used and abused. Have I seen some doozies in PowerPoint? So here's some don'ts on PowerPoint. Please do not cram your slides with text. I still have to say this in the year of our Lord 2023. Do not cram your slides with text. People don't follow it. They cease to care about it. And worst of all, it is not even visual. I'm not sure if you know that or not, but in adult learning theory or learning theory in general, text on a page or text on a slide is not a visual medium, even though you can see it. It's auditory because people hear inside their heads what they read. So if I have a slide that's chock full of text and I'm speaking to you, explaining, blah, 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 my slides are competing with me as the presenter. You don't want that. You want the visual medium to support you, not detract from you. I have some stories about that one. Secondly, don't cram your presentation with slides. Most people here have probably been to a training or two, even if you weren't the trainer. Be honest with me. How do you feel when you're there early and the trainer is setting up and they fire up their PowerPoint and they haven't engaged it yet, and you see the slide list on the left side of the menu and it's like 150 slides? Don't you just like die a little bit inside? Don't you just throw up in your mouth a little bit? I mean, I'm sorry, it's just, if I wanted a torture session, I would go to a torture session. I don't, no, thank you. PowerPoint is to be used sparingly. It's to be used with the visual medium. Okay, but enough of that negative stuff. PowerPoint do's. Do anchor on a slide to explain complex concepts. I have to say, Talha did this like this. He would anchor on a single slide for a while, and there'd be a few key points on his slide, and he would talk to his audience. And really, that's the dynamic that you want. One of the best examples of PowerPoint I have ever seen, I saw it 15 years ago. It's been this long, and yet it's still impressive on my mind. And it was just an economics instructor, a picture of an economics instructor in front of his PowerPoint slide. And all the slide was a simple diagram that explained the economic cycle. It was just a circle and a couple of terms that were within the colored circle. And he was just explaining. And that has been imprinted on my mind as being perhaps the best, most emblematic use of what PowerPoint is actually for. So well done, Dr. Vernon Hobbs, economist. I remember you 15 years ago. Thank you for that example. So here's a workplace example of my job. This is of course, a diagram. And if I were explaining a process to superiors about which departments are going to work with the other departments for getting a certain project done or a certain process done, I might use something like this. But if I did, I would anchor here for a while. And I would sit and I would do the talking, but I would let the diagram do the supporting. So PowerPoint is really always for supported purposes, and it's to support you as a presenter. PowerPoint is not the presentation. You are the presentation. Other do's. Do supplement PowerPoint with other media. Brief and relevant videos are engaging. You use videos, and I know that's a projector that I have, the icon. I couldn't resist. I'm old enough to have viewed things on a projector in elementary school, but I digress. Keep your videos brief and engaging, and immediately discuss the relevant stuff in the new time. Otherwise, it's just kind of like movie time. Printed material. Trainees love reference material that is helpful, material that supplements, that they can go and they can either take a handout or they can at least reference a link for more information. And activities or games are essential piece of the facilitation experience. If they're not engaged in some way, you don't have any activities whatsoever, then something's wrong. All right. Switching gears again and dealing with difficult participants. There are a few different types, but before we talk about them, I'd like your opinion about something. When you are leading a facilitative workshop, or if you were to lead one, well, let's keep this rhetorical. Do you think ground rules, use of ground rules is a good thing? I have to say that I'm kind of on the fence. I've seen them work okay. Ground rules meaning, hey, here are the rules that we're all going to agree to for today's training. Everybody's engaged. Everybody lets each other talk. We don't talk over each other. Those kind of behavioral types of things. If you used them before, fine. But I personally don't use them. And it's because they feel to me a little bit authoritarian, or maybe that they're talking down to the audience. I don't necessarily think that they're a have to use. Instead, I prefer to let the structure of the workshop speak for itself and facilitate that. And really, ground rules to me are the stuff of pedagogy. In other words, teaching children. They're not really the stuff of andragogy or adult learning theory. So if you use ground rules, fine. You find they work, fine. I won't argue with you. But it's just food for thought. Moving on from ground rules to a related topic, though, difficult participants. The workbook for this workshop talked about 4 of them. So we have the talkative type, the mouth here. This is the person that likes to talk. And maybe they have good intentions. They probably do, in fact. But what they say can sometimes take a little too long. So what you might do with the talkative person, if they're taking up airtime, I've written here, focus their verbosity where it fits. So you might recall, as I said a little bit earlier, if they have a long explanation, they're telling you their life story from A to Z, it seems like, and you hear something that's relevant and they hit, say, C, call out C. Interrupt them a little bit and say, whoa, 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 what did you just say right there? C? Oh, yeah, I liked it when you were talking about C, because it's really relevant to what we're talking about right now. It hits the nail on the head. And then you can redirect, perhaps to another participant or to your material. Yeah. Hone in, acknowledge what was relevant from what they were saying, and go from there. This icon here, the silent person, pretty easily explained. They're not saying anything. And as you said before in the discussion, we don't know why they're silent. They could have had something bad happen before the event, or they could be going through a difficult time, or maybe, as Cassandra said earlier, they don't quite understand where everything fits right now with the workshop. You can use a direct question to them and repeat their minimal response. Probably if they're silent, usually whatever you ask them, you're going to get something minimal back. But whatever they give you, take it and celebrate it as feedback. Thank them for their response. If possible, identify with it. If they give you a little bit, then say, sure, yeah, I can see how you would feel that way. Try to encourage them bit by bit, if possible, to participate some more. And then we have the crab. Love the crab. I said that I didn't like ground rules, and I still don't. I stick to that. The crab is the person for whom everything is wrong, or seems to be. They don't like the temperature of the room. The coffee that you serve them is not the correct religion of coffee. They are a Starbucks Ian, and you serve them pizza and coffee. That's just a grave sin in their mind. Whatever. Acknowledge their complaints. Once had a participant, we played a video, and the person in the video was explaining something or going about, I think it was giving a speech. And we were to watch the speech and discuss the speech afterwards. And this person said, I think that was a stupid speech. Okay. I looked at the person and I said, I love you. And we had a discussion from there. Oftentimes the crab might be coming from a place of not feeling heard or not feeling listened to. And so you might consider that. And then finally, there's the know-it-all. Maybe they would, in fact, like to teach the class, but that's not what we're doing right now. Maybe they have made some comments that are vaguely undermining, who knows? In any case, I would tend to want to take their feedback and kind of just read them for a little bit. Maybe don't react instantaneously. But once you kind of gauge what they are familiar with, if you proceed in the workshop and you find somewhere where their input could be of use to you and you can acknowledge them, go back and refer to their knowledge. Oh, Ashley, yeah, I know you, and I know you know a lot about this topic. So what's your opinion about XYZ? Get their opinion. They're itching to share it, so might as well leverage it. Those are my views on dealing with these people. But what I'd like you to do now, right now we'll have a brief breakout session.
May I
And
point out you have 10 minutes left overall, sir.
okay, very good.
I might not be able to do that, I'm afraid.
Okay, all right, very well. So then I will just ask you, let's simplify, just for some feedback. Anybody who'd like to share briefly an experience that you've had with one of these types, the talkative, the silent, the crab, or the know-it-all. Anybody, not necessarily as a trainer, but as a participant, and how did the trainer deal with it? Or how might you deal with it as, go ahead, Elliot.
Thank you, Lee. I think I was in a meeting recently with Ed Cullen. It was good. He used a technique I like to use all the time. We used to use it in the union all the time when someone had like a really particular problem. And it was like seemingly imponderable in the sense that this person had a lot to say about the problem. You appoint them as the chair of that committee to solve the problem. And then you give them someone on the executive committee to work with them to try to solve the problem. It works really well.
Yeah.
Because that person is going to flesh it all out. And we're going to get them, and also it's a leadership opportunity as well, right? So we also step them up to the plate as well. In my union, we used to use it quite often, and I just experienced it recently as a recipient of. I have a problem, Ed, and then so he did it to me, and I'm like, yes, that's that magic I love. Anyway, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, let them put their money where their mouth is. Right? Yeah, great. All right. A couple of things about evaluations. You will want to administer an evaluation, usually, as to get feedback from your workshop. As I said, thin-skinned in the sense that you want to be able to read people and get their feedback. Thick-skinned in the sense that it's not all about you. You want to get their feedback on the program. And really what that means is you want to get their feedback, first of all, on the actual curriculum or the topics and the objectives and things like that, structural things like that. Secondly, and perhaps of greatest interest to you, you want to get their feedback of you as a presenter. Was the presenter prepared? Was the trainer prepared? Did they appear knowledgeable? How effective were their facilitative techniques? Things like that. And then finally, for participants, this is more about the participants' experience. So how did the participants feel about their exercises? How did they rate the various parts of the program or think that it could be improved? So really it's all about curriculum, it's about the facilitation, and then it's about really the participants' actual experience and the learning that they experienced there. So multifaceted in your feedback, and really understand that when you are administering a survey to get people's read on how your workshop or class went, they're probably going to answer what you ask. And so it's important to ask questions in a very careful manner and a very pointed manner. What I will say is I would include one variable per question. So you don't want to confuse the issue by asking in a single question something like, was the presenter knowledgeable and personable? Because people may have different opinions about the knowledge someone possesses and their personality or how friendly they were. And you want to break those out. Because otherwise what happens is, well, I thought he was really knowledgeable, but he really could have been a lot more friendly. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give him 5. That doesn't really tell you any information, any valuable information at all. So keep it very clear and keep each individual question very clear. So briefly, I'd like to hear from someone on considering all the things that you learned today throughout today's training, from all the presenters. How do you plan to use the skills you learned? Anybody can answer. I'll call on anyone who wants to raise their hand. I know that's kind of a broad question to ask and people are thinking about it, but that's okay. I like to pick on people. Let's go with Greg. What are you thinking?
Well, I thought there was a wide spectrum of things to consider for all of us to learn. Some points focus with some of our interests, some may not have, and it's nobody's fault. It's just depending on what we're looking for. And so what do we take away? What takes away? The first question is, what am I taking away? Was the information presented from all the speakers something that's going to enhance my ability to, one, become a better trainer, presenter, to share with people how to organize and plan it? Secondly, will I use it? Was I inspired to go to the next level? That's why I attended, is to find out. For example, I'm going to be in charge of a committee in another district. Working with people, I want to make sure we meet the goal together. So in the presentation of leadership, and that's what we're focusing on, what are the techniques that you shared today that I can put in my toolbox to examine my presentation, to not only motivate the speakers and putting the program on, but the receivers of stepping up to leadership.
Okay, thank you for that framing, that framework. I appreciate that. Real quick, I'm going to go to Tyree.
Yes, I second what Greg just said, along with putting all of that within the context of the amount of time I have to present this thing. So we found that even in today, what we were assigned, 4 hours, it still doesn't seem like there was enough to do the deep dives that we need to practice these different things. But you gave us enough to take away. And I really am taking away from your last slide that the focus in on the program that I'm going to give, the actual presentation. So those are the skills that we hopefully are getting in our Toastmasters meetings. And then the participant. We're always trying to make the connection with our audience and have them, we have a takeaway, but they should certainly have a takeaway as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I hate to have to do this, but I'm going to just call on one more person. I know there are other people raising their hands, but go ahead, Kari. Go ahead.
Okay, it's Carrie.
Sorry.
I just want to drop a little seed. I want to plant a little seed here for this particular training and other trainings going forward. For those of us who have different abilities, I am legally blind. I am also part of a Toastmasters that is completely made up of people with vision, different variations of vision loss. And I'm wondering if when we put these trainings together, if there is an idea toward accessibility for people who are differently abled. I just want to plant that seed for us to be thinking about.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you very much. That's great feedback. Finally, Steve, go ahead.
Let me get off mute here. Talha made a great suggestion when he talked about the different pathways projects we can use to moving forward to continue to increase our skills. You know, some of us have a goal to get through paths, and some of us have a goal to get our clubs excited about pathways, but just looking at the projects and how they can help us is my takeaway. And I'm going to bring that back to the club too, that you all may not be, you may like the manuals better than pathways or whatever, but some of these projects really will help us as presenters.
Yeah, that was a wonderful session he gave, and that was very helpful. Yeah, thank you very much for pointing that out. Okay, I want to thank you for participating in my segment. Appreciate it very much. Thank you to all the people who provided feedback and stayed for the whole thing. That was nearly everyone, so awesome. Thank you so much. And I want to tell you that we will be submitting a survey to you for your feedback for today's workshop. So thank you very much again, and please be on the lookout for that. Probably be in your email by next week. And with that, I am going to hand it back over to our program director.
But before that, Brendan is going to close out for the presenters.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. And again, thank you to all the team that put this training together. And again, I just emphasize this is just an amazing module from Toastmasters International, and very proud of what we're able to do with that. So we talked about some expectations in the beginning, and as we were going through, I highlighted in green the ones I feel that we nailed, that we got them covered, but there's some I kind of have some questions about, and one is how to weave our own life experiences into the training material. I felt like we touched on it very tangentially, but certainly powerfully. And I was wondering if anybody from the IBEX Wild Goat team has any further comments. Did we cover that enough? Or anybody else from this group just think, hey, we got that kind of covered, or we need some more on that later? Okay. We'll take silence as a good sign. The increased creativity. Once again, I thought we covered that with some of the different tools and techniques that were out there, and give you some power to add creativity to your trainings that you design and execute. And, you know, just wondering if it was enough for the people from the Puppy Clan, or do we need any further information from there?
I thought it was wonderful, all the information. Especially, I mean, I could take something from every trainer, and just the most recent one was really, it's really going to help me to be a better trainer, learning about how there's 4 types of questions, and I've always known you have to ask a certain question to get the right answer. And also PowerPoint slides. Oh boy, that one is so helpful, because now I know everything I was doing wrong. So yes, increase that creativity. I think it was all covered for me anyway.
Nice. And the sheet people brought up the best practices from virtual to hybrid trainings. And again, I felt like we touched upon that and we demonstrated it here in this virtual training as well. Hybrid, slightly different, and just want to make sure that it was covered enough, or you got enough information on here on saying, hey, if I'm going to run a training in a virtual or a hybrid situation, I'm prepared.
That was me, Margaret. I find that our group is improving and we are learning by doing. Our one meeting is our meetings when they're in where they take place in person. We've got 2 separate rooms where they're conducted, and one is much better set up for the hybrid experience. So we're learning. We're definitely learning on that aspect. And what I've learned today, I'll be able to take back with me. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you, everybody. The one that I was sure we didn't really cover that the Bear people brought up was to grow membership, and that wasn't really a focus of what we were trying to do today. But again, it's an indirect item here. If you're able to offer better trainings, maybe within your clubs or areas or divisions, of course, the district, I believe that will benefit us all, and membership will grow because quality attracts quantity. So again, I don't believe we covered it specifically, but I think overall it is a benefit to our organization by just having people more effectively trained and offering quality trainings as well. There were 3 items here that I don't believe we covered, and I just want to mention those really quickly. And again, they are in your exercise book as well. And that is exercises, case studies, and demonstrations. And again, the participant handout that Cynthia mentioned, I think we can get you some follow-up information on there. And if anybody has further questions about those 3 types of techniques that you would use as a trainer, please let us know. We can get you more information on that as well. With that, thank you for the opportunity and your participation. Returning control to Cynthia.
Thank you very much, Brendan, for wrapping things up. And as he shared, if you want this workbook, I got approval to send it out to you. So there's my email. You can directly email me with any questions or follow-up, and I will make sure that you have the material that you seek.
I think Kari has a question.
Yes, Kari? Can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
No, I don't have a question. It's from the last time. Sorry, I don't. You can.
Yeah, she didn't unraise her hand yet.
Unraise her hand. All right. Well, if you have follow-up questions, we'll stay behind afterwards. But I want us to end on time as promised. So thank you all for attending, and I hope that we fulfilled all your expectations and we prepared you to meet anything that you need to meet your personal, professional, and Toastmaster goals for 2024. I know that I'm leading a speechcraft workshop. It's starting next week and it's going into January. So I'll be using lessons I learned today for that particular workshop. This couldn't have been done without I like to share A team. And so let me do a shout out for the many people that have helped put this together. We do need a group picture. So let me do the shout out for the people that helped me out, and then we'll do a group picture. Or we're gonna do a group picture before others leave. All right, whoever has a camera and a gallery view, please, everyone take a picture. We'll do a countdown for 3, 2, 1. So wait for it, and then hopefully our tech hosts take pictures. So 3, 2, 1.
Everybody's got to show their video.
Everyone showed their video. We'll do it again. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I've been telling many folks that I've had such a pleasure working and being the program director for this Train the Trainer, because I feel like I've been working with the A team. And on this A team, I had the presenter, we had 2 mentors. We had Ashley Harkness and Michelle Petrola, who were the mentors. I had a networker, recruiter, Cynthia Scott, I had editors for the presenters presentation, Katie Pitts and Jeffrey Young. I had a PR content creator, Katie Pitts. I had a PR distributor in District 57, Elliot Rogers. We had trained the trainers. We had 2 promoters find me gigs where I could speak about this event. That was Ashley Harkness and Janet Peng. I had a recruiter for getting me staff, Sally Philbin. And then I had a unapologetic motivational prodmaster, which is Katie Pitts, who is keeping me on track. I want to thank our tech hosts for our presenters, Daniel Zhu. We had a tech host for our individual audience members, Kat King. And then we have our presenters, Brendan James Murphy, Dr. Jeff Levine, Janet Peng, Talha Bin Hamid, Lee Vaughan. And then we have our backup presenter, Sherry Sue, who I'll talk about a little bit later. Thank you to our timer, Jeffrey Young. And then we have our afterwards team, Elliot Rogers and Kat King, who will be helping with evaluations, our survey. And then we have our YouTube district coordinator, Hans Thoma. I want to give a special shout out thanks to Brendan Murphy. He was the one presenter with the most experience. So in the background, he was doing extra to make sure that all our presenters got extra care and our audience members didn't lack for anything. So special thanks to him. And also to Sherry Sue. Not only was she our backup for all our presenters, she also dedicated a good amount of time to helping edit and review everyone's presentation. We'll see that understudy on the stage soon when we do this workshop again. To recognize your efforts, I want to share that we're going to be handing out, or emailing, I should say, not physically handing out, a certificate. This one is for the audience members. This is proof that you attended the training. So this is our participation certificate. We'll be emailing those to you. So I believe we have at this point have everyone's email. And then this is the same one, but I have a different certificate for our presenters today. It is the same certificate. The certificate looks different. It says served as coordinator, and those are for our presenters in recognition of all the effort that they put into producing these slides, practicing their presentations, and researching their material and coming up with examples. What a joyous workshop to start off our December. Thank you everyone for participating and being here today. And that concludes the workshop.